Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Gaara blinked at the kids assembled before him and they blinked back. Tenten-san was beside him and smiling broadly, multiple kunais in hand. Lee and Naruto were at the back of the room, shouting encouragement and flashing thumbs ups at him. Gaara remembered what Kakashi told him and his head ached. The current Hokage was too easygoing in his opinion. The path to Konoha was familiar to him and they arrived in record time. Gaara left his guards as per usual and he planned to greet the Hokage alone. But when he got to the gates, 3 people were already there, waiting for him. Naruto, Lee, and Tenten-san. They told him that they were his assigned escorts and that Kakashi had sent a note. Dear Gaara-sama, I'll get straight to the point. When I suggested dating to my kunoichis, everyone glared at me murderously so I didn't go through with it. I managed to get Tenten-san as your escort at least. She's free, don't worry. I'm sure she'll date you if given a chance. Well, maybe. Anyway, the real problem here is Naruto and Lee. When they heard that you were coming, they insisted on coming with Tenten. I couldn't say no. You did say that no one should know about this, right? With that said, I wish you the best of luck. I've got a feeling that you'll need it. Gaara glared at the scroll, crumpled it angrily, and promptly threw it away. Lee and Tenten's eyes widened while Naruto whistled. He turned to them, a scowl in place. That looks bad, Lee said. Naruto looked curious. What did Kakashi-sensei say? Gaara glared daggers at the distant Hokage tower. Just nonsense. Judging from his cold reaction, the note contained nothing good. Lee and Naruto knew that Gaara wasn't one to curse, but in their imagination, he was probably hurling obscenities at Kakashi-sensei in his mind. They turned to Tenten, who was the most tactful of the bunch. Would you like to rest first? Gaara shook his head. I want to go to the Shinobi Academy. That was why they were here, with his rambunctious friends in tow. Gaara still hadn't figured out how he would get to know Tenten-san with these two, and he truly blamed Kakashi-san for that. Naruto and Lee couldn't keep their mouths shut even if their lives depended on it. Gaara will put his life in their hands at some other time, but not now. Konoha was the village that they had the strongest ties with, and therefore, a lot of eyes were watching him here. The shinobis here were great allies, but they were rather too curious for their own good. It might not be sporting of him, but Gaara would never entrust them with this secret. He would rather tell his siblings himself. It would be less explosive that way. Hey kids, Tenten's voice brought Gaara back to the present. We have a special guest for today. Do you know who he is? The classroom exploded with noise. The children raised their hands while shouting their names or that they should get picked. Tenten-san pointed at a girl with pigtails and she identified Gaara correctly. Tenten smiled at the girl and gestured for Gaara to formally introduce himself. Gaara did just that and let Tenten-san take the lead. She was friendly and seemed to know all the children's names by heart. They requested to see his sand manipulation, so he showed it. Gaara let his sand trickle on the floor and created shapes for the kids. A lion, a bird, a castle, and even a clone of one of the kids. But what they loved the most was when he created a huge sand slide around the room. Tenten and Gaara ended up watching the children play, and after a while, Lee and Naruto joined them. You're traveling alone? Asked Naruto. Hi, I hope your siblings are well, Lee said, doing his usual push-ups. Tamari is busy threatening the council and I left Kankuro there to hopefully keep her in check. Tenten-san grimaced. Your sister is scary. Crap. Naruto scratched his head. I almost feel sorry for Shikamaru. The rest of them nodded at his statement. After watching a few training lessons and doing another demonstration for the kids, Gaara said that he had seen enough. Naruto complained that he was hungry, and since it was past the lunch hour, they went to Ichiraku Ramen. They quickly found a table and ordered. Hey, don't you have any guards? Naruto asked after looking around. I left my guards outside. But why? It was Tenten-san who asked. It's dangerous. Don't worry, Tenten, Lee interjected. Gaara can take care of himself. He's strong, have you forgotten? I know that, Lee. I meant no offense. None taken, Gaara replied. My siblings are taking care of a lot of things in Suna, so I chose to go alone. That way, other shinobis from Suna can experience the hospitality of the other villages. Oh, right back to Shikamaru, Naruto waggled his eyebrows. He is dealing with a lot of stuff too, he said. It's so troublesome. Everything is troublesome for that guy. Tenten-san shook her head. But he is like a man on fire, said Lee. Shikamaru does everything the Hokage had asked of him, no matter what. He must really love Temari. Tenten-san sighed. Gaara, Naruto, and Lee exchanged meaningful glances. They recognized that it was best not to say anything after a comment like that, so they didn't. Girls were sensitive to love these days, and some were more violent than others. The friends decided to just eat quietly. When it was time to pay, Gaara told Ayame that Kakashi insisted on paying for all of their meals while he was staying in Konoha, so she should open up a tab in the Hokage's name. Ayame grinned at that, recognizing a good client. Kakashi-sensei is so generous, Naruto said with a grin, patting his stomach. Hi, I'm so full, said Lee. Just order everything you want, from now on, Gaara assured his friends. The Hokage will pay for everything. Gaara's week in Konoha passed like a breeze. Lee, Tenten, and Naruto always came early to pick him up. They went into a lot of places, the bathhouses, and the shopping district, or sometimes, they just walked around the village. They met their other friends and they introduced Gaara to the people he didn't know. Just like he thought, he and Tenten-san didn't get a lot of time with just the two of them. Lee and Naruto were always there, dragging him to some place or another. Gaara couldn't complain much since he enjoyed their trips. Naruto and Lee kept the conversation going with just the two of them, and Gaara was happy enough to listen or add a few comments here and there. They encountered Shikamaru at some point, buying a necklace. Their eyes met and held. Gaara's friends stopped, their eyes bouncing between the two. Shikamaru casually pocketed the little box. This is a troublesome surprise. I agree. So, what are we going to do? I didn't see you, he said, and promptly turned in the opposite direction. Come on, Naruto, Lee. They followed him and none of them spoke of what they saw that day. Amazingly enough, Lee and Naruto managed to hold their tongues. Gaara had met Shikamaru one more time before he left, and thankfully, he was alone. They bumped into each other in the Hokage Tower. Both of them were carrying documents and they dropped them while walking, lost in their thoughts. Gaara and Shikamaru hurried to pick the papers up but stopped dead in their tracks and scowled when they recognized the other. Again, Shikamaru sighed and quickly grabbed his documents protectively. This is really becoming troublesome. I'm here for business, Gaara said as he carefully folded his own papers. And you? Same. I see. They stood, nodded at one another, and left. A few paces away, Gaara straightened Tenten's now crumpled dossier in his hands. Gaara was smoothing out the papers when he stiffened as he read its unfamiliar contents. Gaara slowly turned his head when he heard Shikamaru calling him. The other shinobi was panting as he approached and he looked panicked. Gaara's eyes narrowed at the paper he was waving around and he nearly snatched it with his sand. Tenten-san's picture was on display and big-mouthed shinobis were everywhere. Shikamaru finally reached him, his eyes narrowed suspiciously while Gaara stared at him with a neutral expression. Gaara's fingers tightened on the written treaty between the Konoha elders and the Nara clan, and Shikamaru casually folded the dossier in his hand. You're not with your siblings, he mused. And left your guards outside. Gaara nodded. From the rumors I heard about you, I thought you would be too busy to notice. Contrary to what Temari says, I pay attention. I know. Gaara and Shikamaru stood still and stared for a moment. The first one who flinched or averted his gaze was guilty. When Shikamaru discreetly stepped back near an open window, Gaara lightly tapped his foot to let his sand out slowly. I never thought of you as the careless type, Shikamaru tilted his head in curiosity. Must be something important. Gaara folded his hands, putting the document on display. You could say that. Look. Shikamaru scratched the back of his head. This is becoming more troublesome. And, I mean it this time. Shikamaru grimaced and they quickly exchanged papers. Gaara shrugged. I'll keep it in mind. Please do, he snorted. An angry Tamari is a scary Tamari and I would rather not have her barging in here with her giant fan in tow. It was Gaara's turn to grimace. That makes two of us. Shikamaru casually put the document in his pocket while Gaara played it safe and put it in a scroll. Marrying a foreigner was always a tricky business and it was more difficult because of their status. He probably understood that fact more than anyone. Gaara and his siblings were considered royalty and Shikamaru had to jump through a lot of hoops just to get the elders of both villages to agree. Tamari wouldn't be happy about the concessions Shikamaru made. Knowing his sister, she would rather ignore the conventions and marry whomever she wants, and her long letter asking for approval would just come after the deed has been done. If that didn't work, the threats would come and she would definitely drag him and Kankuro along to scare them into submission. I trust you, Shikamaru's panicked voice snapped Gaara from his thoughts. But not those two. Better hurry up then. The taller man smiled wryly. Good luck with your business, your partner is a nice person. Arigato, Gaara mirrored his expression. Nothing is determined yet and I'm just enjoying my time here. Hi, Shikamaru waved and attempted to jog away but stumbled on something. Looking closer, his eyes widened as golden sand was subtly spread around him to resemble a squashed deer. Arigato. Shikamaru. See you in Suna. Is that a threat? He pointed at his feet. Or is this one? Both. Gaara turned with a smirk, relishing Shikamaru's muttered curses, and swiftly walked away. Tamari would kill him if she found out about their conversation, but some things aren't meant to be said. Little brothers worry too and Gaara was no exception. However, Shikamaru had proven himself in his eyes, and for that, he would keep quiet. To Gaara's relief, he navigated the winding path to the Hokage's office without encountering anyone or any problem. Gaara didn't schedule a meeting with Kakashi until the last minute. He didn't want to spend time with the irresponsible Hokage more than necessary. Gaara dropped off the request and proposals he made earlier and promptly left. He had a cool reputation to uphold, but he might lose it if he listened to more of Kakashi's excuses. He did meet with Tsunade-sama though, and they discussed the medical advancement he saw in Kumo. Lucky for Gaara, her clinic was nearby and his walk there went smoothly. She was straightforward as ever and it was refreshing. What a great find, she exclaimed. I would be happy to test these machines as soon as possible. Sama would be glad to have you, he sighed. I mean, the medical shinobis there would be. I don't care what that old man thinks. I'll come there for the medical advancements and the casinos. Maybe cut back on the gambling part. Oi, she jabbed an angry finger in his direction. I already paid what I owe you. Hi, but, besides, it's time for me to enjoy life, she said, her voice lowering dangerously. Am I right? That's what you always do, Gaara muttered under his breath. Did you say something? Tsunade asked while cracking her knuckles ominously. Gaara looked away. Safe travels, Tsunade-sama. That's what I thought. Tsunade-sama had never treated him differently. She didn't care about his status and she was always the first to trust him. He had asked his siblings about it and Kankuro said that it was because she sees him as one of Naruto's friends, while Tamari told him that the people in Konoha are just emotionally open like that. Whatever her reason was, Gaara was grateful to her for not making his life difficult, unlike her successor. After his conversation with Tsunade-sama, Gaara wandered around Konoha alone. Though he loved company, sometimes he still preferred a bit of solitude. He passed the Yamanaka flower shop and couldn't help but remember his first meeting with Shinobu. He smiled but resolved to ask Tenten-san out on a proper date. That was why he was here, after all. Later that afternoon, only Tenten-san accompanied him. Naruto went with his fiancée to finish their wedding planning and Lee was with his sensei for an impromptu training session. Gaara and Tenten were walking around the village. They were passing through a makeshift market. Little wooden stalls littered the street. There were vendors everywhere, selling products in whatever way they could. It's a little unorganized here, Tenten explained as they dodged a man juggling the crystal balls he was selling. Most of the people here don't have enough money to apply for a permit, so they can't sell in Konoha's main market. I see, Gaara said, looking at the people with curiosity. Are they always here or only at a certain time? It's late afternoon now, said Tenten. Hokage-sama allows them to only sell at night. They can apply for a permit when they have enough funds. Gaara stopped and Tenten followed. Something had caught his attention, a purple hairpin shaped like a flower in full bloom. It was large and looked too heavy, but it reminded him of Shinobu-san's eyes. It was exactly the same color. That's pretty, Tenten murmured from beside him. I'm sure Tamari-sama would appreciate whatever you give her. Tamari doesn't care for that, Gaara said with a slight shake of his head. The color reminded me of a person, that's all. Does that person like hairpins then? Asked Tenten, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. I don't know. I didn't ask her. I have seen her wearing a ribbon as her only hair ornament. Tenten-san came closer and inspected the hairpin. Does she like flowers? The craftsmanship is of good quality, ladies would love this. Gaara looked interested. You think so? Hi. She grinned up at him excitedly. I'm a weapon expert, so I have a good eye for detail. Besides, I'm a lady and I like it. Would you like one as well? Iye, she flushed with embarrassment. I'm fine, Gaara-sama, don't worry about me. You should pick something for yourself. Tenten opened her mouth to argue, but Gaara held up a hand to stop her. Let's just say it's my payment for your help. I plan to buy my sister one after all, and I'm clueless about these things. Her lips twitched in amusement. Fine, I'll help you. Tenten-san helped Gaara choose something for Tamari and he encouraged her to pick one for herself as well. She was enthusiastic about helping him buy his gifts but very reluctant whenever he would ask if she wanted something. She refused everything he pointed out, but when she saw a pair of simple lilac hair ribbons, Tenten finally relented. She thanked him and they left there with Gaara's wallet significantly lighter. Tenten-san was right, the purple hairpin was of high quality. Gaara was not certain if Shinobu-san would like it or not. But at least, it was another excuse to see her. That thought almost stopped Gaara in his tracks. It hadn't been that long since they parted, but he was already thinking of seeing Shinobu-san again. He glanced at Tenten-san walking beside him and a prickle of guilt hit. He was here to get to know her, not to think of another woman. Hadn't he thought of asking her out earlier? Gaara turned to Tenten-san walking beside him. She looked at ease in his presence, already wearing her new hair ribbons. She had been a part of the team who saved him from the Akatsuki years ago, and he just realized that he knew next to nothing about her except for the information written in the dossier. And Gaara resolved to get to know her now. Was it always your dream to be a weapon specialist? Tenten shook her head. Aya, Tsunade-sama is my idol, I wanted to be like her. You wanted to be a medical shinobi? Gaara asked in surprise. He was having a hard time imagining Tenten-san other than the weapon expert he knew her to be. She was just so good at what she does, it would take some time to get used to. That's the thing, she sighed, twirling a shuriken. I don't have the right amount of concentration or the patience to be one. I had a tough time accepting that, but when I did, it was like a boulder had been lifted off my chest. I don't have to change, only my dream. Does that make sense? It does. Oh right. Tenten glanced at him, a soft smile playing on her lips. You had to change too. Hi. Gaara agreed. And I can honestly say that it's the best decision I made in my entire life. I will always be grateful to Naruto for that. We need to thank that idiot for a lot of things, but he's just our friend, you know. That's all. Gaara nodded at that. Naruto truly made an impact on a lot of lives. He was so determined, so headstrong, he inspired change. After that interesting conversation, he asked Tenten-san to bring him to the best weapon shop in the village. Since he bought Tamari a hairpin, he might as well find something for Kankuro and Baki-sensei too. With that, Tenten-san's face lit up. She dragged him to her little shop, excitedly talking all the while. She asked him if there was something in particular he was looking for. What was his budget, how long did he plan to use it, and was he looking for a combination? Gaara answered her questions as much as he could, but sometimes, she lost him, her knowledge of weapons surpassed his own. He remembered when he was reading the candidate's dossier, he thought that he and Tenten-san would have weapons to talk about, and he was right. When he had bought everything he wanted, Gaara took Tenten out for a simple dinner. When she tried to decline, he told Tenten-san that it was to thank her, and she finally agreed. He let her choose the restaurant and they continued their earlier conversations. Gaara had a pleasant time talking to Tenten. It was a relaxing dinner with a friend, a welcome change in his routine. She had told him a lot of stories when they were younger, and Gaara shared a few of his own. Tenten-san was bright and cheerful except when she mentioned Neji-san, and Gaara was now sensitive enough to change the topic when he saw the sadness in her eyes. Kankuro would be proud of him. Gaara's last day in Konoha was an eventful one. He and his friends just ate and toured around the village like there was no tomorrow. When night came, they decided to have a party with Hinata-san and Shikamaru's team. Though he looked reluctant, the Nara head agreed and joined them as they ate barbecue to their heart's content. Gaara made sure to send the bill to Kakashi before they left the restaurant. Gaara smirked as he walked away, serving him right. He had enough of irritating old men. He just wished he did the same to Onoki back in Iwa. Gaara was sure that Kuretsuchi would have loved that. It was a good thing that Gaara learned from his time in Kiri and had packed his things in the afternoon. Gaara and his guards stayed at the same inn, but he gave them leave to explore and do what they wanted with the condition that they would meet each other at the Konoha gates every morning and evening to check in. Gaara felt relaxed in Konoha. Walking with his friends and getting into shenanigans with them was a memory that he would always treasure. Though they slept late last night, Gaara and his friends were standing near the gates in Konoha at first light. Naruto, Lee, and Tenten decided to see him off. Dawn was approaching and Gaara wished to leave as soon as possible. He'd rather not make a repeat of what happened with his siblings. Are you sure you won't meet with Kakashi-sensei? This won't start an international incident or anything, would it? Asked Naruto, scratching the back of his head. There's no cause for alarm, Naruto, said Lee. Gaara is the case cage, he may just be busy. Everything is fine, Gaara assured his friends, a mysterious twinkle in his eyes. Lee's right, I need to get my affairs in order, that's all. Besides, I've written him a note. He'll understand. Gaara's guards flinched behind him. In fact, he didn't go to his scheduled meeting with Kakashi today and just ordered one of them to send the note a while ago. His friends exchanged glances at his odd behavior, but none of them asked. Whatever Gaara did, it would be Kakashi's problem anyway. Well, if you're sure, then it's alright. Be careful, Gaara-sama, Tenten winked at him. Oh, and tell me if they like what we've bought, okay? Hi, I will let you know, Tenten-san. Safe travels, said Lee and offered up his hand. Gaara shook it warmly. Arigato gozaimasu, Minazen. I'll see you again soon. Then, he smiled at them. It was fleeting but genuine. His friends smiled back and Gaara left with them waving behind him. Out of all his trips, the one in Konoha was the least productive. But the time he spent with his friends was priceless and Gaara will never trade that for anything. Yes, he and Tenten-san didn't get a real date, but he gained a friend instead. To him, that was more important. Besides, he had made his decision. Gaara signaled to his guards and quickened his pace. He needs to prepare to receive a guest. And he hoped that his siblings would go easy on him. He had no doubts that in some way or another, they would pry the truth out of him or his guards. Gaara just hoped he could delay it long enough for Shinobu-san to arrive. At least, they would limit the shouting when their reputation was on the line. Maybe in this instance, he could use the baby brother card. Mei had just received a letter from Gaara-sama himself. He is inviting Shinobu-chan to come to Suna and celebrate the Moon Festival with them. She couldn't be happier with this news. It seemed that Mei was worried for nothing. She spent days thinking of how to ask Shinobu-chan if she made an impression on the cage or not. But this letter confirmed it. Looking at her now, Mei suddenly had second thoughts. Shinobu was neat and clean, but not today. She was just lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling and doing nothing. Her painting tools were in disarray around her. Is there a problem, Shinobu-chan? Aya, she replied in a subdued tone. What can I do for you, Mei-sama? Mei hesitated. Actually, it's about the cage. Hearing that seemed to be the magic words. Shinobu sat up and her violet eyes focused on Mei. What happened to him? Is he alright? Did he arrive safely? Mei held up a hand. One question at a time, please. Shinobu flushed. I'm sorry, Mei-sama. As you know, I'm just curious. Oh, that was more than simple curiosity if you ask me, Mei said dryly. You sounded like you're his girlfriend or something. Aya, why do you always joke about that? Now that I have met Gaara-sama, it's really not funny. Mei swept Shinobu's things away so she could sit on the bed. She faced Shinobu and raised a questioning brow. What happened, Shinobu-chan? I need you for an errand and I can't send you when you're like this. Shinobu's gaze was firmly on her lap, her fingers tangled. I think I miss Gaara-sama. Hearing Mei's snort, she continued. I know I'm being silly, but it's true. There's not a day since he left that someone or something reminded me of him. It could be a green curtain in the shade of his eyes, the cactus display I passed, and even the food I burned. All of that just made me miss him more. Do you really feel that? Hi, Shinobu groaned, covering her face with her hands. I no longer see him as an ideal. His silence wasn't cool, sometimes it can be awkward, but other times, it was comforting. Gaara-sama wanted to do and experience a lot of things, but he doesn't know how to express that. He had changed a lot from what he once was, but he is still changing. He's aware of his shortcomings and is actively doing something about it. Shinobu looked at Mei, fluttering her hands to make her point. Gaara-sama has a sense of humor, although a dry one. He will eat, preferably with company. He's happy when he's around his friends and siblings. Oh, and he doesn't know how to play cards. Do you have feelings for him? Asked Mei, her arms crossed. Other than your crush, I mean. Shinobu stilled at that. She stared at Mei for a long moment, not saying anything. I think I might have, she admitted. Shinobu clasped her hands and looked at Mei pleadingly. I know this might be too much for Mei-sama, but didn't you tease me about sending my dossier to him? Is Gaara-sama in search of a wife? Oh, only a betrothed, I think, said Mei, mischief dancing in her eyes. His sister is to be married after all. Oh, of course, Shinobu batted her eyes at her cousin. Am I not your favorite cousin, Mei-sama? Help me, please. You're pulling all the stops here, she frowned. Aren't you being too reckless? All I know is I want to see Gaara-sama and spend more time with him again. Shinobu crossed her arms and lifted her chin. If he's looking for someone to date, why shouldn't it be me? You have a point. Mei tapped her finger on her lips, giving Shinobu a scrutinizing look. Shinobu straightened her posture and folded her hands demurely on her lap. She tilted her head slightly and asked Mei in her most polite voice. So, will you send my dossier? I already did, Mei grinned at Shinobu's shocked face. And he's inviting you to Suna. Nani. 2 weeks had passed since Gaara came back. The crunch of sand under his feet, the warmth of sunlight on his back, the whoosh of wind in his ears, and the welcoming smiles of his siblings made Gaara feel truly at home. He had fun in his travels, but this was where he truly belonged. He glanced at them discreetly and thought to treat them to dinner. Gaara wasn't good with expressing his feelings, he tended to be unclear at times or too direct, sounding insincere. Standing and looking like a fish out of water was embarrassing, especially in front of his siblings. But not having Temari and Kankuro at his side for a few weeks was odd, and right now, Gaara just wanted to share stories and bond with them. That would have to be enough. When Gaara had settled back into his routine, he received a letter from Mei that Shinobu-san had agreed to come to Suna. Gaara wrote a quick letter of acknowledgement and sent it himself. Even Gaara was surprised at his eagerness. He had debated whether to wait a few days before replying but decided against that idea. It was hard to admit it, but he was truly excited to see her again. Most of the time, Gaara felt that everything was happening so fast that he couldn't keep up. Other times, he thought that this was natural and things were happening as they should. He was only certain of one thing though: this was the first time that he was processing this many emotions at once. Normally, Gaara would go to Kankuro for such a problem, but that was no longer an option. He wanted to keep it a secret for as long as he could. It was not like he didn't trust his siblings, just the opposite. Gaara wanted to be certain about Shinobu before he introduced her to his siblings. It didn't seem to him that Shinobu-san was the type of person who would lie, and Gaara liked her enough to invite her here. That was why he wanted everything to go smoothly when she arrived. Gaara understood Temari and Kankuro's worries. He'd rather not get deceived again, but he believed that they were compatible with each other. Temari would fume whenever she remembered what the Hoki clan did. Since they lived in Konoha and she went there regularly, her ranting sessions were quite often. Gaara's cacti still hadn't recovered from Temari's frequent assaults. His sister had a nasty habit of angrily swinging her fan when she vented, and she often did it near his beloved plants. Gaara had told her off once, and she had glared at him so hard that he and Kankuro thought she would blast him off too. It was not just Temari though. Kankuro had also become overly cautious since then. Whenever they would attend an event, his brother would check the place for traps, taste test the food for poison, and do a background check on every single guest. When Gaara told his brother he was being paranoid, he received a long lecture about the importance of always being cautious and preparing for everything. His head ached for days after, so now Gaara just let Kankuro do his thing. Sure, Gaara came back safely from his trip, but he was still not ready to tell them what had happened. Maybe, after Shinobu had left, he would tell them what he had done. They might interfere otherwise. Gaara signed his last paper for the day and stared at the busy village through the glass windows in his office. Shinobu-san should have received his letter by now. He sent it days ago. Come to think of it, she might be on her way now. Temari usually cleaned the house, so Gaara had no problem on that front. Gaara checked another box off his mental list but stopped when he remembered something important: the food. Shinobu doesn't just love to eat, she loves to cook too. They often ate out, so there was nothing to cook in the house. Determined, Gaara grabbed his wallet and went home. Surely one of his siblings could help him buy a few essentials. Did we really have to get the groceries? It's Temari's job, Kankuro complained. Gaara and Kankuro carried bags as they walked. The brothers had at least 3 on each arm. They had just gone to the market to buy supplies: meat, fruits, vegetables, and such. Shinobu loves to cook, so he thought that having supplies on hand would be good. Temari wasn't at home. That was why Gaara ended up dragging Kankuro to the market. It won't hurt us to help once in a while. It's my day off, I should be at home, relaxing. Gaara almost felt bad for Kankuro. Their shopping should have taken just an hour, but when they got there, all of the villagers greeted them and offered them their goods. It was rare that the two of them visited the market, so the vendors were only too eager to assist. The shopkeepers had nearly swarmed them. Good thing Gaara's presence was commanding enough when he asked them to not push each other and to please talk one at a time. It wasn't all for selling and offering their goods though. The villagers also voiced their many complaints. Gaara heard a few concerns, but seeing Kankuro's irritated expression, he changed his mind and told them to just go to the Cage's tower. The people were only too happy to agree. Most of them nodded enthusiastically and some dispersed to do their forgotten tasks. The people that were left were store owners, so Gaara and Kankuro were dragged to shop after shop and asked to sample their food or try their wares. Gaara and Kankuro were offered free stuff, half price for anything they wanted, and some just insisted on giving them unreasonable discounts. It would have been rude to ignore them, so Gaara lessened the sting by telling them that they couldn't possibly use all of it and he wouldn't hesitate to ask if they wanted something. Thankfully, that calmed the vendors down, but he and Kankuro still had to stay there twice as long as they should have. Though many people had stopped them, most just wanted to chat. They told them about the difficulties in production, the costs of import, whose customers behaved unseemly, and how their days had been. Oh, and a bit too much about their single female relatives. To Gaara's dismay, his unmarried status was a hot topic not only with the elders but with his people as well. Though the Suna council preferred his bride to be a member of the nobility, a girl from the village would be acceptable too. Gaara didn't know how that rumor got out, but because of it, almost everyone he met excitedly told him that they had a nice, polite, and intelligent female relative and the two of them simply should be introduced. Tamari was usually there to fend them off, but unfortunately, not today. Their matchmaking aside, Gaara enjoyed listening to his people's stories. It warmed his heart that they were confident and comfortable enough to tell him about their lives. It was an unusual relationship between a Cage and his people, but this bond was what Gaara treasured the most. This was the proof that he was not who he once was, and it strengthened Gaara's resolve to do better when he knew that his people were making the most out of everything. Sometimes, Gaara's popularity still amazes him. People treated him differently now. They were nice, polite, and overly grateful in his opinion. Some of them even got comfortable enough to joke with him. Gaara was happy about their change of heart. It was what he and his siblings worked hard for. But there were certain times, like when he had seen a lone kid playing on the swing or someone being bullied, and he couldn't help but be reminded of his life with Yoshimaru and how the people of his village saw him then. Gaara didn't hold a grudge against the people of Suna for how they had treated him when he was a kid. He was a Cage now too and had finally understood the decisions that their father made. It still hurts though. It was then that Gaara appreciated Tamari and Kankuro's presence in his life. They had every right to just leave him alone, but they didn't. His siblings stayed with Gaara through thick and thin, supported his dream, and fearlessly defended him at every turn. For Gaara, they were the greatest gifts his parents gave him. "We're almost there," Gaara placated his brother. Gaara thought back to when he got into a fight with the elders over his siblings. They complained that Gaara was too lenient with Tamari and Kankuro. They are the children of the previous Cage and therefore should make Suna their priority. Not slack off or worse, marry an outsider and live in another hidden village. Gaara just glared at the elders then and didn't say anything. Keeping quiet and surrounding himself with golden sand was a highly effective intimidation tactic that never failed him. He just had to maintain his neutral face for a few minutes and it would scare them enough to let Gaara do what he wanted. Most of them were council members from his father's time and they remembered Shukaku's rampage well. Even if Gaara told them many times that he would not hurt them within reason, when he glared or frowned, they would easily tremble in fear. Some hid their emotions very well though, and in those cases, Gaara had to let out his sand to get his point across. His father would roll around in his grave when he found out how Gaara was using the golden sand he gave him. But Gaara was never fond of his father, so he didn't lose any sleep over the thought. The younger members of the council were mostly reasonable and the elders would stop pushing the issue after that display. With Baki's help, Gaara made sure that their enemies in the council wouldn't have anything against them. Planting loyal Anbu everywhere just to nip their plans in the bud was an irritating but necessary exercise. Watching the elders rearrange their angry faces was only entertaining a few times. They still have sharp words for him, but Gaara let them be because they were aware of how ridiculous it was to point fingers if they don't have proof. Everyone knew that losing something in the desert often leaves no trace. They can't insist that Tamari marry if there are no papers requesting for it. Neither can they shut down the secret puppet core if it was faultless. They all kept their mouths shut in regard to Tamari and Konkuro's lives. No one even batted an eye when the delegates from the Nara clan arrived for the marriage talks. Gaara too rarely objects to what his siblings do. He went along with Konkuro's crazy schemes and supported Temari's projects. They gave him so much and now it was Gaara's turn to repay all of it. You so owe me for this, Ototo. Konkuro's voice brought Gaara back to the present. Oh look, we're near the house already. Can you stop whining now? Oi, how dare you talk to your big brother that way? I'm your cage, Gaara smirked. I can talk to you however I please. Konkuro shook his head fondly. You're a brat, you know that. Hi. Konkuro stopped while Gaara got the key. After a long day, they finally reached their house. Why did you buy a lot of things anyway? None of us can cook. I just wanted to stock up, okay? He replied, suddenly irritated. Maybe because he's expecting a visitor, said Tamari, her voice low and slightly threatening as she joined them. Gaara and Konkuro stood outside, but Tamari was blocking the door. She stood there, hands firmly on her hips, and was glaring daggers at Gaara. Baki was behind her, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Hey Nei-san, Konkuro sounded nonchalant. So what if Gaara has friends over? It's fine. You won't say that after you read this. She slapped a crumpled piece of paper on Konkuro's bag and promptly dragged Gaara inside. What's this about, Tamari? Asked Gaara. Don't play dumb, she snapped. I have Baki as my witness. Did you really think we wouldn't find out? Gaara made eye contact with his former sensei who lowered his gaze. Tamari-sama found a crumpled letter in your office, my lord. Gaara stiffened at that and his eyes snapped back to Temari's glaring ones. He told the council not to tell his siblings about this. Since Tamari and Konkuro yelled so hard, and spat threats and curses at them during the mishap with the Hoki clan, they all agreed to keep it quiet. Gaara took all kinds of precautionary measures, but he didn't think that a crumpled paper would be his undoing. Beads of sweat gathered on his forehead and he subtly avoided his sister's eyes. He was really in trouble now. In his haste to send the letter, he had forgotten that this was also the day when Tamari cleaned his office. Gaara heard Konkuro's colorful swearing behind him and he internally cringed. This was not how he wanted his day to go. I can explain. Oh, Temari's teeth gnashed. I'm sure you can. Damn it, Gaara. Why can't you understand the words, be careful? I was careful. He lifted his chin and crossed his arms. I brought trusted guards with me. Don't you think I can't take care of myself? A miss. His siblings had asked Gaara for more details though, and he gave in eventually. Besides that she was also a kunoichi and the current Mizukage's relative, he told them nothing. Tamari demanded and tried to guilt-trip him into telling her more, and when Konkuro's spying had come up with nothing, they resorted to pestering Gaara for what they wanted. Temari's visit to Konoha wouldn't be until the end of the month, so she still didn't know that Gaara had been there. Chills gathered on his back when Gaara imagined telling his siblings that he traveled around the 5 great nations just to go on dates. He would stick with the original plan to just tell it to them later. Gaara would rather not bombard his siblings with new information all at once, it wouldn't be good for his and the cacti's health. Until today, that is. The 3 of them had begun to follow a routine and Gaara had struck at the last minute so they wouldn't have a chance to catch him. This way, he could at least welcome Shinobu-san on his own. Gaara nearly reached the Suna gates and breathed in relief when he saw that neither Tamari nor Konkuro was there. It looked like his plan was successful. Gaara touched down smoothly and greeted the guards who were stationed there. Gaara stood at one side of the gate, posture straight and hands clasped behind his back. Now that he was here, Gaara felt slightly apprehensive and more than a little nervous to see Shinobu again. He hadn't seen her in over 2 months. Could she have changed? She was overly forward when he first met her, shy and sometimes talkative on their second meeting. Gaara couldn't help but wonder how she would be this time around. Shinobu-san's behavior aside, Gaara hoped that Temari and Kankuro would like her. Gaara's sweating palms and pounding heart while he waited surprised him. He hadn't sorted out his feelings about Shinobu just yet. Between his cage duties, dealing with his people's complaints, and outmaneuvering his siblings, he simply did not have the time. Gaara was certain about 3 things though. 1. He was thankful to both Mei-sama and Baki-sensei for giving him this chance. 2. He wanted to see Shinobu-san again and show her his beloved village. 3. Gaara felt relieved that Temari and Kankuro weren't here. Did you really think we would fall for that, Ototo? Kankuro's voice came from nowhere. The weather was naturally hot, but Gaara felt cold all over after hearing his brother's voice. If Kankuro's here, Temari will be too. To think that he had been optimistic earlier, now he's not even sure if his siblings would leave enough of him to welcome Shinobu-san. Gaara gulped. He just couldn't catch a break. Have you forgotten that I'm the smart one in this family? Temari asked, sounding smug. Well, too bad. Gaara finally turned around and almost cursed out loud. He saw his siblings a few steps behind him. Temari's iron fan was out and so were Kankuro's puppets. They were casually leaning on their weapons, looking for all the world that they belonged there. Really? Gaara said, looking unimpressed. Don't you think following me here is too much? Why, we're just wandering around the village. Gomen Ototo, subtlety is not your forte. Gaara aimed an intense glare in their direction. Temari and Kankuro did not falter. The once peaceful day threatened to become chaotic. Temari snapped one of her fans. Kankuro's fingers twitched for his strings while Gaara clenched one of his fists and gathered sand on his feet. All of the siblings' patience was stretched to their limit and Baki wasn't there to disperse the tension. A soft yet accented voice caught their attention nearby. Ahaya gozaimasu mina-san. Can I trouble one of you for directions? Sumimasen, can I trouble one of you for directions? Shinobu said politely to the shinobis standing at the imposing Suna gates. Of course. Show me your identification please. After showing them her invitation, they checked her bags before letting her in. Suna was stricter with foreigners than Kiri. It was understandable though, they hadn't lost their caution since the Akatsuki attack 3 years ago. When they were done checking, the guards finally gave her directions to the cage mansion. Shinobu thanked them as she walked. She nearly stumbled at who she saw nearby though. She made sure to bend her knees just right, keep her posture perfect and all of her fingers aligned as she bowed. Shinobu wasn't expecting that they would greet her at the village gate. At least her lady training had been good for something, since the San siblings were considered royalty here. Ohayo gozaimasu mina-san, my name is Terumi Shinobu, Shinobu greeted as she lifted her head. It is an honor to meet you. These are my siblings, Temari and Kankuro. Gaara jerked his head at the person on each side of him and promptly held a hand out to Shinobu. And I officially welcome you to Sunagakure, Shinobu-san. Arigato. Gaara-sama stood straight, shoulders back and his siblings flanked him, as usual. Shinobu couldn't help but feel a bit intimidated and maybe it was just the heat but Shinobu thought she saw their weapons out earlier. She had blinked and it was no longer in sight. They looked perfectly normal to her. The siblings were polite enough but Shinobu noticed the tension they were trying to hide and it made her more nervous. She sighed softly and tugged on the red bandana Mei-sama had forced her to wear. Everything in Sunagakure looked different, especially the clothes, Shinobu thought as she eyed Temari-sama and Kankuro-sama. Even Gaara was wearing a different outfit. The only things they had in common were her ankle-length boots and the thin fingerless gloves she always wore. Shinobu was glad that it was both stylish and practical in this weather, but the siblings' somber style made her anxious. The siblings preferred darker colors, blacks, browns, and purple. It was a contrast to Shinobu's haltered pink floral dress. Shinobu bit her lip as she thought about her red bandana that matched the bow on her carefully braided hair. The color seemed too bright and cheerful. Shinobu was afraid she looked childish. The siblings might have their head covers, but they didn't put it on. It was just casually slung over their shoulders, making them look more mature. They were famous shinobis who belonged to an illustrious lineage. She couldn't help but compare herself to them. Mei-sama's encouragement was great, but she was alone here. Though they welcomed Shinobu politely, none of them smiled at her, and that just adds to her nervousness. "It's nice to meet you too," Kankuro said as he ushered them ahead. "I'm sure you're tired. We should go to our house so you can get some rest." Shinobu turned to Gaara, surprise in her eyes. "Your house?" "Oh," said Tamari, her expression deadpan. "Didn't Gaara tell you?" "How can I?" Gaara-sama sounded irritated. "Shinobu-san just got here." Details. A cheerful Kankuro clapped his hands and pushed his siblings as they walked. "We can talk about it when we get there." Gaara beckoned her over and they ended up walking together while Tamari and Kankuro followed behind. Shinobu arrived early and she was thankful for the cold wind on her back. Mei-sama said it wouldn't last, though. "Is there something wrong, Shinobu-san?" "Aya." She covered her discomfort with a smile. "I was just observing things, Gaara-sama." "Lucky for you, it is the perfect time for that." He tilted his head and Shinobu followed suit. "Look!" Shinobu exclaimed in delight at what she saw. The sun was slowly rising over the horizon and its golden rays cast intricate patterns of light and shadow upon the sprawling dunes on Sunagakure. She marveled at the sandstone walls they passed, adorned with intricate carvings and motifs engraved over the years as they made their way around the settlement. It was an interesting mix of defense mechanisms and a testament to the village's penchant for artistry and craft. Now that she looked at it, Shinobu noticed that the village itself was constructed strategically, with brick buildings carefully integrated into the landscape to offer protection from the scorching desert winds and shifting sands. She had heard a few things about Sunagakure and the rumors were right. The village was known for its distinctive architecture, with domed rooftops and intricate lattice windows that evoke a sense of both beauty and practicality. It was like an artist's paradise here, Shinobu thought to herself. "What do you think?" Gaara asked softly. Shinobu beamed. "Sunagakure is beautiful, Gaara-sama. Arigato." He smiled. "Later, we can explore the market. Maybe you'll find rare herbs or spices there." "I would love that." Tamari and Kankuro exchanged bewildered glances. Their little brother never smiled like that, especially not to a stranger, and a girl at that. Even when he tried to interact with more people, Gaara once complained that he found most ladies unnecessarily loud. That was why he usually gave them perfunctory greetings. The older siblings thought that the couple was getting too close for their comfort. So, when Kankuro frowned and tilted his head in their direction, Tamari intervened. "Hi." Tamari cut in between them and lightly grasped Shinobu's hand to follow her. "Right, Kankuro." Shinobu looked away with a blush while Gaara glared at his sister's back. Kankuro chuckled and wrapped an arm around his brother's arm. "Sure," he replied. "Let's show Shinobu-chan around." Speaking of, Tamari sounded curious. "You're Mei-sama's?" Shinobu looked confused but answered. "I am a distant cousin on her father's side. I help her out when I don't have missions." "Right. I wonder, can you use the Terumi clan's Kekkei Genkei?" "I don't think it's necessary for her to answer that," Gaara said sharply. "It's fine." Shinobu placated Gaara and turned to Tamari with a polite smile. "I don't mind. Hi, I can use it and combine it with my sword skills." "Oh." Tamari's eyes glinted as she grinned, her teeth bared menacingly. "I would like to test that." Shinobu's shoulders hitched upwards as she stuttered. "Oh, of course. Don't scare her off, Nei-san," Kankuro casually chimed in, masking his impatience with a smile. "I'm curious, how did you meet Gaara?" "Very subtle." Tamari scoffed. "What? You were taking so long." "I was getting there." I can't believe this, Gaara snapped. You didn't even wait until she settled in. Where are your manners? Excuse me. Tamari sounded incredulous. Kankuro narrowed his eyes. Since when did you talk about manners, Ototo? I'm sure we can talk about it. The siblings' gazes fell on a nervous-looking Shinobu. I can make tea and it would go well with the snacks I brought. After she piped in, Tamari-sama and Kankuro-sama went quiet while Gaara-sama snatched her wrist and walked ahead. They reached the house and the siblings urged her to rest. Shinobu was embarrassed to admit it, but she fell asleep as soon as Tamari left. She woke up late in the afternoon and proceeded to brew her host's tea. She hurried down and smiled at the siblings gathered in the dining room. Konnichiwa Mina-san, she said, awkwardly holding her bag. May I use your kitchen? It's fine, said Tamari. Don't worry about a thing, you're a guest here. She's right, let's eat out instead. Kankuro supported his sister. Aya, she said shyly. It's no trouble at all. Tamari patted the seat next to her. Just sit here and we'll handle everything. Oi, you sound like you want to interrogate Shinobu-chan, Kankuro chastised his sister, his voice low and eyes narrow. She's Gaara's guest and we have to treat her nicely. They probably intended their actions to be hospitable, but Shinobu felt like Gaara's older siblings were threatening her. She gulped but resolved not to step back. She shouldn't show any weakness here. Sabaku no Tamari wasn't known to be soft. She was like a desert rose, beautiful, strong, and fierce. Kankuro meanwhile was a spy master and a famous concoctor of poisons. They were civil, but Shinobu can feel that they're suspicious of her. I really don't mind, she said again, but the two ignored her in favor of sniping at each other. Shinobu is a great cook, Gaara interjected and his siblings quietened. Let her do what she wants. We have many supplies, anyway. Hi, I wonder why. His sister narrowed her eyes at Gaara, who just shrugged. It was Kankuro who pointed her at the kitchen, at the back and just adjacent to the bathrooms. For the official residence of 2 generations of Kazekage, the place was a bit small. Shinobu noticed the minimalistic designs on the brick walls as she unloaded her things on the polished countertop. Shinobu saw a few picture frames as she made her way to the kitchen. They were carefully hanged in the living room and they all looked recently taken except for the portrait of their mother who looked exactly like Tamari-sama. Based on Gaara-sama and their father's reputation, she ventured that it was a house and not a home for a long time. Shinobu pushed her swirling thoughts aside and the whispering siblings behind her to focus on her task. She brought out the buns she baked yesterday and heated them in the oven. While she waited, Shinobu washed the tea set they told her to use. As she was drying them, Shinobu noticed the familiar colors of each piece and a gentle smile curved her lips. It was the gift she gave to Gaara and it looked well cared for. She started to brew by filling one pot with cold water and another with milk. She carefully adjusted the stove's temperature and let it boil. Sweet aroma permeated the air as she took a small, ornate, lacquered box, carefully scooping out a handful of plump wild berries harvested from the mountain near her inn. She placed the leaves in the teapot and a few minutes passed before Shinobu poured water and watched as the infusion darkened into a rich ruby color. When it had steeped enough, she added a dash of milk and stirred well. Shinobu got the tray she prepared and placed the teapot and a plate of sweets as she walked towards the siblings. She gave them her best hostess smile as she gracefully poured each cup and offered them bread. Gaara quickly filled his plate and looked intrigued as he blew on his tea. Is this a new flavor? Wild berry tea, my favorite. You know, Kankuro commented as he chewed. This bread tastes familiar. Haven't we had this before? You're right, Temari's brow furrowed in thought. With the karage. Shinobu gave them to me. Nani? His siblings asked in unison. Gaara casually sips his tea. Didn't I tell you? You rarely tell us things these days, Tamari grumbled. Sumimasen for the confusion Tamari-sama, Shinobu looked guilty. It wasn't my intention. I'm blaming Gaara so don't worry about it. Come on Tamari, Kankuro grinned. Give Gaara a break. It's his bento girl. Shinobu flushed and averted her gaze as Temari's eyes lit in recognition. Gaara rolled his eyes in exasperation and closed his fist. Sand swirled and formed into a ball and hit Kankuro over the head. Oi, my hand slipped. Stop it, snapped Temari. We have a guest. Shinobu laughed at the siblings' antics. She watched as Temari-sama scolded her glaring brothers till they angrily turned away. Shinobu was glad to see another side of Gaara-sama, open and casual with his siblings, unlike the formal facade he presented to the public. So, asked Kankuro when they finally settled. Can you cook for us, Shinobu-chan? Since Gaara accidentally bought the whole market a few days ago. Gaara's ears burned as he glanced anywhere but Shinobu. We were out of groceries, I had to buy stuff. Right, Kankuro smirked. Keep telling yourself that, little brother. Gaara scowled, but before he could close his fist, Temari smacked it away. Shinobu is a guest here, why are you asking her to work? We should show her around and help her shop. Honestly, the two of you are idiots. The brothers pointed at each other. Just him. I really don't mind cooking, Temari-sama, Shinobu said with a smile. But I would love to see the market as well and the greenhouses if possible. Oh, some pots too, and a few clothes would be nice. Don't forget the council, Gaara reminded her. A foreigner must pay respect to them when visiting here. Shinobu's beaming face scrunched up into a disappointed pout and her excited gestures halted. Shoot, not those pricks. Kankuro burst out laughing while Temari's smile became genuine. Gaara shook his head at her but didn't bother to hide his twitching lips. Shinobu meanwhile, covered her face in embarrassment. Sumimasen, she glared at an amused Gaara. It just slipped out. Not all of them are like that, you know, Gaara said, with a touch of fondness in his voice. Most of them are, she retorted. That seems to be the case in every hidden village. I think I'm going to like you, Terumi Shinobu. Temari patted her hand warmly. I agree. Kankuro got over his laughter and smiled at Shinobu. Great choice, Ototo. Right. Gaara stood and collected the dishes. Shinobu-san and I will make dinner. Can one of you invite Baki-san over? Oi, what did I say about making our guest work? Tell me what you want and I'd be happy to make them for you, Shinobu offered. Besides, the more the merrier. Sure, I can do that, Kankuro said, if you cook me hamburger steak. Shinobu nodded and with a resigned look, Temari made her own request. Temari was still reluctant to make her work, but Kankuro dragged his sister out the door while he whispered in her ear. The older siblings were still arguing as they left. Gaara washed the dishes while Shinobu inspected the kitchen. It was the first time that they were alone and a lot of things needed to be said. I assume that Mei-sama told you everything. Shinobu stilled and kept her back to him as she answered. Hi. I'm sorry for the secrecy. Gaara turned to her, his voice sounding weak and vulnerable. It tugged on Shinobu's heartstrings and her shoulders relaxed a fraction. I had a bad experience before, so I chose to keep this as private as possible. Shinobu faced him and crossed her arms. I don't like lies, I thought you knew that. I did. He nodded, looking extremely guilty. And I came here, didn't I? Hi. I'm glad that you did, Shinobu-san. She sighed. I don't agree with your reason, but I understand it. That's all I ask. However, Shinobu pointed an angry finger at him. I may not be as understanding the next time. Gaara captured her hand to entwine his pinky finger along with Shinobu's with a serious expression. I promise never to lie to you again, Shinobu-san. Please forgive me. Alright. Arigato gozaimasu. Shinobu stepped back, disentangled her hand, and turned around to hide her blushing cheeks. She bustled away, clanging pots and pans in her wake. Anyway, where are your spices? Her voice was a higher pitch than usual. We need to do a lot of things. Temari and Kankuro peeked at the kitchen window while Baki wished he was anywhere but there. He got a message that the siblings were inviting him for dinner, but when he showed up, These two quickly grabbed him in order to spy on their little brother. Gaara-sama might have mellowed out over the years and he loved his siblings, but this was overboard. I don't think this is a good idea, Baki whispered for the umpteenth time. I strongly advise you to talk it over with Gaara-sama. I didn't think that frilly and delicate was his type. Kankuro sounded bewildered. She doesn't look fragile to me, Tamari mused. She carries herself well, in fact. Do you remember her bow earlier and the tea pouring skills? You have a point. Unfortunately for Baki, his former students weren't listening to him. They were too busy observing the kunoichi from Kirigakure and berating Gaara-sama for thinking that he could keep a secret from his older siblings. Baki had concerns when Gaara-sama first proposed this plan, but he also realized that no one could stop the cage when he put his mind to something. All he could do was caution the young man, and he had promised to be careful. Unlike the Hoki clan incident, Gaara-sama personally chose this lady, and that was the only reason that Baki had high hopes for its success. From their location, they couldn't hear voices, but they could catch a glimpse of what they were doing. Baki sighed and finally looked through the window. Gaara-sama and Terumi-san were busy cooking dinner. It looks like she was handling most of the tasks while he assisted her. Gaara cooks now. Kankuro looked confused. Last time I checked, he couldn't cut a vegetable to save his life. I can't believe he pestered me to teach him just for her, Tamari grumbled. They watched as Shinobu stirred the pot and Gaara dutifully chopped onions. The two of them worked and chatted seamlessly. While they were talking, Terumi-san's emotions were displayed on her face, and Gaara either nodded or shook his head in response. He was far from a perfect helper, but Shinobu was always there to correct him. She seems nice, Baki commented. The lady is graceful too. Can we leave them alone now? Baki, Tamari shot him a glare. It was you who always told us that looks can be deceiving. Hi, Baki looked like he swallowed a particularly sour lemon. But, we're not sure, but she might be an expert on poison. Baki scowled. I thought you liked her. Hi, Kankuro replied. But we can never be too careful, you know. While I understand your worries, Gaara-sama himself chose Terumi-san out of all the candidates. So, the incident with the Hoki clan will not happen. Also, if you have concerns, please just ask your brother about it. I know he would appreciate it more. You're right, Baki-san, they heard a deep voice say behind them. Wait, Kankuro's eyes narrowed in a furious glare. What do you mean by other candidates? Tamari ground out her words. The three of them stiffened as they turned to see Gaara behind them, his arms crossed and eyebrows raised. Tamari and Kankuro mirrored his posture while Baki cast his gaze downward. Why, oh why was he here again? Gaara waved his hand. That's not important right now. Excuse me, Tamari placed a hand on her hip. I get to decide that. Kankuro nodded at his sister's words. This is not like you, Gaara. You two should stop this, Gaara scolded, avoiding eye contact. It's embarrassing. Oh ho, Kankuro smirked. You're embarrassed now, are you? Look, we're just suspicious because we care about you, Gaara. Tamari uncrossed her arms and sighed. We mean you and your guest no disrespect. Why were you spying then? Because you don't tell us things, Tamari said with a frown. Ever since the Hoki incident, you flip out at every little thing, he replied with a frown. Because it's the older sibling's job to make younger siblings' life miserable, silly. Kankuro's grin was ear to ear. Shinobu-chan, is dinner ready? Gaara stared blankly as he saw his brother through the window. It turned out that Kankuro had put a puppet in his place and was already inside, calling out to Shinobu. He was on his way to the kitchen while gleefully carrying a thick album. Gaara's eyes widened while Tamari chuckled beside Baki, who shook his head. Kankuro, don't you dare, Gaara growled and promptly used his sand to go after his brother. Revenge is a dish best served cold, mused Tamari as she followed her brothers inside. That's making us worry, Ototo. Baki waited a minute before knocking on the door. He had never thought that he would see his former students act like a normal family, but here he was. Life was truly full of surprises. He gave the befuddled young woman who let him in one of his rare smiles. She was one of the reasons why all of this is happening, and Baki really hoped that this relationship goes well. My name is Baki, he introduced himself. I was invited for dinner. Welcome, I am Terumi Shinobu, she smiled graciously and moved aside, gesturing to the kitchen. The food is ready, I'm just waiting for them to finish bickering. Hopefully, they don't break anything. Don't worry Terumi-san, my students would never. A shattering noise was heard from the kitchen and then silence. Baki cringed while Shinobu gazed anxiously at the sand-enclosed door. A whooshing sound and angry shouting filled the house. Oh, Baki shook his head with an exasperated sigh. Never mind. Crispy fried tofu, handmade hamburger steak soaked in garlic sauce, beef soba, and sweet red bean buns are on the table. The rice came out white and fluffy, and the cucumber juice Shinobu prepared smelled appetizing. However, none of the occupants were poised to eat. They were too busy looking anywhere but each other as Baki-san tapped his foot impatiently while Shinobu wrung her hands beside him. Really? Baki's tone was flat. Of all the times to do this, you choose now. Kankuro started it. Gaara grumbled. You insulted Temari's intelligence. Kankuro pointed an accusing finger at his brother. Both of you got on my last nerve, Temari snapped. Enough. Baki ran frustrated fingers through his hair and glared menacingly at his former students. I don't want to hear it. Just clean this up. Hi Baki-sensei, they said in unison and quickly got to work. Everything but the table was a mess. Vases were shattered, jars were overturned, and chairs were in disarray. Temari's iron fan was out while puppet strings and sand were everywhere. Shinobu's voice was soft. I help. Baki shook his head and led her to the receiving room. Let's just wait for them to finish, Shinobu-sama, then we can have dinner. The two sat and listened as the siblings righted the kitchen. A few awkward moments passed before Shinobu finally spoke. Did they fight a lot? She was twisting her fingers on her lap, looking worried. Or, is it about me? The former sensei closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. It's not your fault. This was a long time coming, believe me. Shinobu looked at him curiously. What do you mean? Everyone knows that Gaara-sama's siblings stayed by his side since the failed invasion of Konoha. He had changed after that incident, but it wasn't easy for them. We were afraid of Gaara-sama for so long and forgot that it took some time. I watched those three walk on eggshells around each other and they would hesitate to offer a kind word or a helping hand. That's perfectly understandable Baki-sensei, Shinobu nodded. Adjusting is difficult and it takes time and effort from both parties to succeed. Hi. Baki gave her a warm glance that he transferred to the closed kitchen door. Little by little, Temari-sama and Kankuro-sama got comfortable showing affection to their brother and Gaara-sama learned to accept them. It's just recently that he finally chose to reciprocate. So when they lecture, tease, or joke with one another, I am proud. Oh, I see. It's giving me headaches, but I'm glad that the siblings are having petty squabbles like this now, Baki mused. All of them are stubborn, so this was inevitable. At least, they are free to act as they will. Shinobu stopped fidgeting to giggle. You are a caring man, Baki-san. Baki looked away. I'm just doing my job, my lady. If you say so. Anyway, he adjusted his collar. I heard from Gaara-sama that you are interested in flowers and plants. Hi. Shinobu smiled. Taking care of them is one of my hobbies. If you ever visit the greenhouse, please come to the pottery nearby. Those three haven't been there either. I'm certain you would enjoy it. Arigato Baki-san. Shinobu-san. Baki-sensei, Gaara called. It's time for dinner. Shinobu let out a relieved breath when she saw the smiling faces of the siblings as they came in. The place was spotless, like the previous incident never happened. The siblings looked relaxed now and their expressions were genuine. The food was neatly placed on the table with the chopsticks in a straight row. Shinobu clasped her hands to give thanks and shyly said, I hope you like my cooking. Just the smell is making my mouth water, Shinobu-chan, Kankuro replied with a reassuring smile. Arigato. Kankuro is right, said Tamari. Please teach me a few recipes when you have the time. Arigato. Shinobu visibly brightened. And I would love to teach you. Hi, Gaara said, his eyes twinkling mischievously. They really need your guidance, Shinobu-san. Watch it, you brat. Tamari and Kankuro snapped in unison. Baki-san cleared his throat with a frown and the siblings froze at his dark expression. But before things got awkward, Shinobu suddenly burst out laughing. She was covering her mouth with her hand, but her shoulders were shaking and tears almost came out of her eyes. It's not polite to laugh at your hosts, Shinobu-sama. Sumimasen, Baki-san. Baki chuckled at her flustered face while the siblings shared a soft smile. The dinner was a silent affair for the most part after that, with Tamari or Kankuro asking Shinobu a few questions. They mostly asked about what she did, her hobbies, and preferences, and Shinobu was more than willing to answer them. Though it was still a form of interrogation, Shinobu no longer felt intimidated. Tamari-sama's smiles and Kankuro-sama's jokes also helped her feel at ease. Gaara and Baki-san commented here and there, and gradually, Shinobu relaxed enough to start conversations on her own. It was a pleasant time and Shinobu enjoyed their company. Everyone was happy and ate a lot. As she prepared for bed, Shinobu remembered the siblings' soft expression earlier. Though they didn't look alike, their smiles were identical. Everyone woke bright and early the next morning. To help familiarize Shinobu with the village, Gaara offered to bring her to various restaurants in Suna. Wanting to explore, she agreed immediately. The two were walking side by side, but one looked more excited than the other. Shinobu's eyes were full of anticipation while Gaara's lips curved faintly. Where are we going, Gaara-sama? What are we going to eat? What kind of desserts do you have here? She asked the questions in rapid succession, her hands fluttering in time with her chatter. Gaara shook his head in amusement. Calm down, Shinobu-san, I'm going to take you to a bake shop and the market, you can find everything there. Gaara found Shinobu's changing expressions refreshing. Usually, she tries to be still, quiet, and polite, but she easily lets go of that persona when she hears about food. Her curious and lively attitude comforts him greatly. All right, she lightly grasped his wrist and pulled. Come on, let's go. Gaara and Shinobu didn't get too far before Tamari and Kankuro stopped them. Gaara, Shinobu-chan, Tamari called as she and Kankuro strode towards the two with a frown. Sumimasen, but I need to talk to you. Gaara raised an invisible eyebrow. What is it? Well, you see, Tamari scratched her head with an apologetic expression. Baki-sensei just informed us about an emergency council meeting. They were arguing about the supplies we'd previously lent to Konoha. Gaara sighed. I already gave them a comprehensive report, what do they want now? Those idiots just want to make our lives difficult, Kankuro grumbled, slightly kicking the sand around them. Sorry, Shinobu-chan, Tamari grimaced and curled her arm around Gaara's. But the cage needs to attend. Oh, her shoulders drooped. I understand. Seeing her sad expression, Gaara felt guilty. His brother was right, the council loves to make trouble for them. To think that he told Shinobu otherwise last night. It's really irritating. Say, how about I show Shinobu-chan around instead? I know all the popular places here and one of us is enough to keep an eye on things, Kankuro offered warmly. Shinobu visibly brightened while Tamari looked at Gaara, who nodded. He was hesitant, but Kankuro gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder before they went in opposite directions. So, what do you want to see first, Shinobu-chan? She tapped her chin. Gaara-sama promised to take me to different restaurants and Baki-san told me that he knows a pottery shop. How about we look at flowers or maybe find something artistic? Yeah. Kankuro scratched the back of his head. Flowers and plants aren't my thing, so let's just go with the arts. I know a good place. Suna's streets are a labyrinth of sandstone pathways and narrow alleys, bustling with villagers going about their daily lives. Vendors peddled vibrant fabrics, exotic spices, and intricate crafts in a vibrant marketplace at the heart of the village. Wow, Konkuro chuckled. I think I can see the sparkle in your eyes, Shinobu-chan. I hope so, she replied in awe. Your village is beautiful. I'm glad you think so. This place is a paradise for artists, Shinobu said brightly. It would be a delight to mix colors to create this landscape. That would be so much fun. Konkuro looked pleasantly intrigued. Do you paint? Not usually. She turned to him and waved her hand at the busy street excitedly. But this rare desert beauty is just begging to be put on a canvas. Konkuro's eyes twinkled. Oh, but you haven't seen the good stuff yet. Konkuro walked past the vibrant and glamorous shops and gestured for Shinobu to follow him. They took a few twists and turns until they reached a quiet part of the market. At the corner of the street, there was a rough-looking alley. It wasn't dirty, but it lacked the liveliness of the other stores. Shinobu blinked. Are you sure this is the place, Konkuro-sama? Hi, are you scared? He teased. Aya, come on then. He opened the door. Konkuro was very amused as Shinobu's eyes lit up as soon as they entered. Wooden shelves were hung on each corner of the store and the colorful bottles were uniformly arranged. She flitted around, exclaiming at almost everything like an excited kid at Christmas. He brought Shinobu where he buys his paints when he found out that she was a fellow artist. Since one of Sunegakure's products was oil, they boasted a large collection of oil paint. Their products were vibrant and lasted longer than other oil-based paints, so artists dubbed the store to be the best in the 5 great nations. This was still a little shop when I first came here, Konkuro said with a wistful look in his eyes. But right now, they are the most well-known store in Suna. Really? Shinobu was curious. How long have you been painting, Konkuro-sama? Ever since I was a child. His gaze was distant, as if remembering an old memory. When the elders in my village told me to start training like a lady, she pouted, but her expression was quickly replaced with a soft smile. I never thought I would enjoy it though. But eventually, I did. Konkuro nodded with a smile. For me, it was my escape. When I want to be alone or just let my feelings out. Hi, it was the same for me too. Shinobu's gaze shifted to the side. I'd often use painting to escape the nagging of those elders. It was a skill that they encouraged me to learn, so they couldn't punish me for being good at it. Konkuro laughed. You're a clever one, aren't you? Shinobu blinked innocently up at him. Why? I don't know what you mean, Konkuro-sama. I was just honing my craft. Right. Konkuro's eyes were filled with mirth. How about you show me this craft of yours? She looked confused. I already painted a tea set for Gaara-sama. That's from you, huh? He murmured. Makes sense. What's that supposed to mean? She sounded confused. Nothing. Konkuro waved her question away. How about we think of a project together? So, we can do something while you're staying in Suna. Shinobu's face lit up. That's a great idea, Konkuro-sama. Shinobu and Konkuro took their time choosing the paint they wanted. Unfortunately, an hour passed, but the two of them still couldn't decide on which color combination to use. Blue-violet. Violet-blue. I think blue-violet is better. Violet-blue looks classy to me, Konkuro-sama. They're practically the same color, the shopkeeper nearly snapped. Just pick one, please. Shinobu piped in. They may look that way, but the order of how the paints are mixed can affect when we use them to paint. That's why we are very careful to pick one. How about you just buy both and argue later? He pleaded, sweat gathering on his brow. You're holding up the line, ma'am. Shinobu quickly grabbed both bottles and ran to the counter with a guilty look on her face. Sumimasen. Shinobu and Konkuro got out of the store, but Shinobu was still feeling guilty. A few minutes later, she was still glancing at the direction they came from, and then Konkuro distracted her with food. Being the ardent explorer that he was, Konkuro took her to expensive places and exotic joints. She was a good sport though and had readily eaten or drank what he offered. Kankuro was the emotionally open one among the siblings and he got along with most people. Shinobu was thankful for that because she didn't have a hard time talking to him. She got to relax and be herself around him and Kankuro never judged her for it. They laughed and chatted about various things while eating. The paints they use, their favorite artists, and their inspirations. Kankuro talked about how he made his famous puppets and Shinobu told him the story when she presented her first tea set. I wasn't kidding when I said that I'm the artistic one in the family, you know. Kankuro sighed in dismay. My siblings just don't get it. I know. Shinobu gave him a sympathetic glance. Mei-sama can't distinguish art at all. You think dressing themselves would be second nature but no, Kankuro complained. If it weren't for me, those two would be a laughing stock. At least you can advise someone without the fear of losing an arm. Shinobu huffed. Mei-sama would always get angry when I mentioned something that sounds like marriage, so I had to be very, very careful when talking. If she followed what I told her, she might have had a better chance in her love life. Shinobu and Kankuro both tried to look good as much as possible, which was why it hurt them to see others when they wore or bought something that wasn't to their high standard of beauty. The two of them also lamented the lack of artistic awareness of their close relatives and the many ways they helped them. As they went home, Shinobu was already mumbling fusion recipes that she would like to try with the ingredients she could find in the market while Kankuro walked beside her, carrying various bottles of paint. You don't look like it, but you're a tough cookie to crack. Shinobu blinked. I get that a lot. Oh good, Kankuro grinned. I thought we scared you already. Were you trying to? Kankuro sighed. We're just worried about Gaara, he's our little brother after all. Shinobu nodded. I know. He may say wise words on occasion and look cool while doing it, but emotions are new to Gaara. Kankuro's gaze was far away as he talked. I just don't want him to get hurt. Shinobu lifted her chin, her violet eyes bright. I can't promise you that he won't get hurt, but don't you think it would be good for him to try? We'll work on that, Kankuro said with a determined nod. Hopefully, Gaara will understand. Baby steps Kankuro-sama, Shinobu encouraged. Gaara-sama cares for you deeply and values your opinion. Don't worry too much. Kankuro ruffled her hair with one hand. Arigato, Shinobu-chan. Shinobu smiled. Doitashimashite. The next day, Shinobu and Tamari went shopping. Gaara had a meeting with the council, so he and Kankuro decided not to come. The ladies also said that it would be a good time to bond, so they let them be. Shinobu blinked at the bed and the towel laid out in front of her. The place was nice, clean, and smelled good. Tamari-sama was already settling herself on the other side of the room. When the older Kunoichi suggested bonding, Shinobu didn't think that she meant this. Is there a problem? Tamari asked. Shinobu replied. She took off her clothes and got on the bed. It's just my first time getting a massage. Good thing you came with me, huh? Tamari smiled. Because you're missing out. The attendants came, let them choose their preferred aroma, and proceeded to give them a full body massage. The soft music, sweet scent of lilacs, and gentle ministrations of the masseuse lulled Shinobu to sleep. Tamari-sama was right, she was missing out. So, Tamari asked, sounding a bit smug. How was it, Shinobu-chan? Everything was great, Tamari-sama, she replied, fluttering her hands to make her point. The massage, facial, and hair treatment were the perfect combination. Please don't move too much, ma'am. Sumimasen, Shinobu said when the girl drawing on her nails frowned at her. Finally, I get to drag someone, Tamari smiled. My brothers will just look at me like I'm crazy whenever I suggest it. Shinobu giggled. They're missing out. I know, right? You should come and visit our inn next time, Shinobu offered. Gaara-sama said you would enjoy our hot springs. Tamari raised an eyebrow. Really? He said that? Hi, and that you would love the little picnic tables near it. Oh, the boat market too. Tamari's lips curved upwards. Wow, How thoughtful of him. He really is, Shinobu agreed, her face red. Thoughtful, that is. You like that about him? Shinobu was nodding before she caught herself. Am I that obvious? Aya. Tamari sighed. I'm just a smart big sister. But that's not all. Gaara-sama is intelligent, understanding, and respectful. Sure. His silence can sometimes be awkward or intimidating, but no one is perfect, right? Tamari placed a hand on Shinobu's stiff shoulders. Relax, Shinobu-chan, you won't hear an argument from me. Oh, she looked flustered. I'm not. Don't worry. Tamari gave her shoulder a reassuring squeeze. I know he likes you too. Shinobu's face turned red again. I hope you're right, Tamari-sama. Tamari laughed and teased a blushing Shinobu the whole time. After the spa, they shopped for clothes, shoes, and perfumes. Shinobu wouldn't usually buy a lot of stuff, but Tamari-sama insisted and shared that one of the reasons why she can be confident is the scent she wears. Shinobu was quickly convinced. While the girls enjoyed their shopping, the guys faced a long and boring day working. Gaara stamped another document, put it in the done pile, and glanced at the clock. Night was already falling, but Tamari and Shinobu weren't back yet. What kind of bonding did his sister mean, anyway? Tamari won't eat her, you know, Kankuro said from his place on the couch in the Cage's office. I know that. Oh yeah, his brother raised an eyebrow. Then, why do you keep tapping your fingers on the desk and glancing at the clock every 5 minutes? Gaara's fingers stilled. I wasn't. Kankuro snorted. Relax, Gaara. You're right. Of course I am. He smirked. Big brothers know best, after all. I doubt that. Gaara's voice was dry as sand. That conversation with his brother was an hour ago. Kankuro went home first, but Gaara decided to finish his paperwork tonight. He planned to spend time with Shinobu before she met with the council. Baki-sensei had already given them a report of his first impression, which was why they had stayed quiet till now, but he couldn't delay it any longer. A knock distracted Gaara from his thoughts. Come in. Shinobu entered with a smile, carrying a tray of tea and snacks. Konbanwa Gaara-sama, we were worried that you might be getting hungry, so your siblings asked me to bring you this. Gaara hid his surprise with a nod. Arigato Shinobu-san. She spread the cookies before him and poured tea with a practiced motion. This is mint tea and it goes well with chocolate chip cookies. Gaara smelled the familiar fragrance of mint and chocolate, but there was another sweet scent mixed in. His brow furrowed in slight confusion but lifted the cup and blew on it before drinking. Shinobu pointed at the plate and he felt glad to try one just to see her smile. Do you like it? Hi, you made them. Tamari-sama and Kankuro-sama helped me. Shinobu sounded proud. Gaara stared at the oddly shaped cookies. I see. Shinobu glanced around his office with a frown. I'd ask how your day went, but never mind. Gaara shook his head. Tell me how your days went instead. Shinobu visibly brightened as she chattered excitedly. Oh, your siblings are so fun to be around, Gaara-sama. Yesterday, Kankuro-sama and I walked all over town, picking beautiful landscapes to paint. He even brought me to a paint store. Oh, Gaara looked interested. I thought you don't do paintings. I'll make an exemption for this one, she said with a dreamy smile. And earlier, Tamari-sama and I went to a spa and it was relaxing. Since his sister used his card, Gaara hoped it was worth it. I'm glad that you get along. We do, she nodded. We bought and ate a lot too. I tried everything from camel meat to refreshing pomegranate and sweet dates. Oh, and I also enjoyed buying perfumes and soaps. I think aromatic products can be a big industry here, Gaara-sama. Perfume, you say? Hi. Shinobu blinked and rummaged in her bag. Finding no bottle inside, she hesitantly presented her wrist. Here. Both of them were blushing by then and avoiding eye contact. Gaara cleared his throat before gingerly taking Shinobu's hand near his face. Gaara felt Shinobu's rapid pulse underneath her smooth skin as he inhaled the intoxicating scent that she wore. Lilac suits you, Shinobu-san. Arigato. An awkward silence followed their brief interaction. Shinobu hid her face as she sipped her tea while Gaara's gaze was firmly on his paperwork. Every time one of them would glance up, the other would find an excuse to avoid their gaze. You don't have to wait for me, Shinobu-san. Gaara finally broke the silence. I appreciate the tea and cookies. It's all right. She gave him a small smile. I usually stay until Mei-sama finishes her work. If you don't mind, can I clean up a little? Gaara looked at the pillows and blanket his brother left behind and sighed. If it's not too much trouble, then go ahead. Sure thing. Shinobu quickly put things in order with a practice motion. Don't worry, Mei-sama's office is messier. Really? Gaara replied absently, as he watched Shinobu. You won't believe it, Gaara-sama. Honestly, how can she find a husband if she can't clean up after herself? My poor cousin. She looked at ease in his office, picking up and carefully placing things where they belonged. Her non-stop chatter lightened the earlier mood, and it was like that until Gaara finished for the night. After he locked up, the two of them went home together. If they walked a bit closer than before and their shoulders brushed a few times, no one noticed but the bright moon illuminating their path. On Shinobu's fourth day in the village, the four of them decided to go to the Suna greenhouse. Today was their first outing together and everything was going well so far. Wind chimes made of delicate glass and metal resonated melodically in the breeze, creating a soothing symphony that permeated the air. That was what greeted them when they finally reached the greenhouse. Plants that thrive in deserts filled the place and Shinobu happily examined them one by one. Pretty pinks, vibrant reds, cheerful yellows, and tranquil whites littered the place. Rows and rows of desert lilies and roses were carefully trimmed, blooming magnificently despite the dry climate. Little patches of dandelion and snow flowers broke the monotony while pots of white wormwoods and verbena gave a fragrant air. Wow! Shinobu lightly touched everything she passed, curiosity written on her face. The flowers are lovely. They are. Tamari approached a row of desert lilies, cut off one flower's bulb, and offered it to Shinobu. We eat this here, try one. Shinobu ate it and a bitter look crossed her face. It's slimy but tastes like garlic. Hi, Tamari smiled. We boil or bake them for it to be more palatable. Just think of the new dishes I can make with this. Oh, Konkuro grinned. My stomach is rumbling already. We also have fruit trees here. Gaara pointed to the other side. An edible cacti as well. Shinobu looked intrigued. You can even eat that. Hi, Gaara replied and gestured for her to follow. They serve cactus salads here and mint tea as well. Tamari and Konkuro watched the two walk but didn't follow. They had been chaperoning for a few days now and finally concluded begrudgingly that Shinobu and Gaara deserved more time alone. Shinobu-san seems nice. Nei-san, what do you think? Hi, Tamari placed a hand on her chin. She's pretty, polite, and loves to cook. Perfect wife material, according to the council. Who cares about them? Konkuro frowned. Gaara likes her. I can see that, his sister agreed. Let's just hope that she's strong enough to push back if needed. Gaara scheduled the meeting tomorrow. I heard that he had Baki-sensei report his first impression instead of making her come in person. I see, Tamari sighed. I really hope this goes well, Konkuro. Me too. Konkuro gazed at Gaara and Shinobu brewing tea. Me too. Tamari, Konkuro, Gaara called. We're going to eat. Do you want some? Hi, we're coming. Tamari kept sighing and Gaara grimaced behind them and stared longingly at the exit. They had been here for hours, watching the two artists work. Wait, 3 actually, if they counted Baki-sensei. After the pleasant tea time, Shinobu and the siblings went to the nearby pottery studio. Baki-san suggested it to Shinobu as a must-try in Sunagakure. His former students haven't tried it either, so he invited all of them when they visited the greenhouse. They descended stone stairs and entered a spacious room with candle-lit chandeliers and multiple ceiling fans inside. The windows were currently wide open, letting the natural sunlight in, giving the place a relaxed and homey vibe. The room has a few long tables and chairs were stocked near it. A large brick oven was tucked neatly in the corner adjacent to the sink. Sample pots were scattered everywhere, their size and designs varied. Not all of them had plants inside, though all of them were equally exquisite. Baki was in the middle of carrying supplies when they came and Shinobu greeted him warmly as she hurried to help. She placed the bowls of water near a wooden wheel while Baki-san put bags of clay on each side. The two arranged what they would use and chatted like old friends. Gaara exchanged bewildered glances with his siblings. I didn't know that they're close. Baki smiling is not a sight we see every day, Kankuro commented. Let's just go, said Tamari, and the siblings finally sat when their sensei called. Shinobu was already sitting and Baki stood in front. He was holding a clump of clay while eyeing his students. As you know, pottery has existed for a long time and it has many benefits. So now, he scowled when he heard someone snicker. What's funny? Oh, nothing, sensei. Kankuro's shoulders were still shaking slightly. It's just that you look so serious, it's funny. Tamari shook her head with a laugh. I agree with Kankuro on this one. I'm always serious, Baki frowned. And if you're going to notice anyone, it has to be Gaara. Gaara looked up, his eyebrows raised. We're pointing fingers now. Baki dragged a hand down his face. Let's just get on with this lesson, shall we? Shinobu watched them, amused. Baki-san's room and demeanor truly portray a harsh classroom environment and Kankuro-sama played the petulant student very well. But even if they were scowling and snapping at each other endlessly, she had never seen any of them more relaxed than in this room. Everyone, tear off a clump of clay and put it on your corresponding wheel. Baki did as he instructed them. Now, gently smear your clay with a bit of water and start rubbing it with both hands. Gaara, don't try too hard, okay? Kankuro teased. Everyone here knows I'm the talented one in the family. Gaara scoffed. I don't need to cheat just to beat you, Kankuro. Don't worry, I won't judge you if you do. Isn't that right, Shinobu-chan? Shinobu lowered her head to hide her smile. I don't think Gaara-sama would do that, Kankuro-sama. I remember when we were kids. Stop chatting and start molding, Kankuro-sama. Hi Baki-sensei. Once they all made a hard enough base, Baki-san pierced the center with his thumb and they copied him. They then placed their creation on the wheel and held its center while their other hand spun. Baki reminded them to put a drop of water from time to time to make it even and solid. Only Shinobu and Kankuro got it on the first try. Now, they were using the extra clay for decorations while Baki-san helped the other two. Tamari put so much water in hers that it did not solidify properly. Gaara meanwhile had no imagination for the design and just made a simple pot. Shinobu ended up making a large pot with 4 holes. She was now carefully engraving drawings on each side. Kankuro, for his part, created a pot sculpture. Its body was the man's body and the hole was in the head. He even painstakingly sculpted Gaara-sama's face perfectly. Look, he placed the clay near his brother's face with a grin. Don't they look alike? Shinobu and Tamari burst out laughing at Gaara's dumbfounded expression. Even Baki-san's lips twitched before he stepped in. Stop teasing your brother, please. But really, he continued. If I paint this thing, Shinobu-chan might not be able to tell the difference. Getting fed up, Gaara wrapped his sand around his brother, molded it like a spear, and made a circular motion to shake Kankuro inside. He didn't stop until Kankuro looked green and he ran to the sink as soon as he got out, promptly casting out his accounts. Gaara wiped his hands free with a smirk. My brothers are idiots. Tamari shook her head, hiding her amusement. Baki-san's shoulders slumped as he let out a heavy sigh. Please clean that up while I put this in the oven. Shinobu was the last to finish. She almost lost her concentration while the brothers were fooling around, but thankfully, her creation was still beautiful. She planned to leave her pot in Sunagakur, for she was exploring while having so much fun here and she wanted to leave a memento behind. Actually, She would ask Baki-san if she could create little souvenirs to take home. Shinobu learned that the siblings were all members of the Suna Council aside from their other jobs like the foreign ambassador and puppet corps master. Baki-san was at Gaara-sama's side as his attendant and usually, one of them accompanied her during her stay. Gaara-sama's siblings were nice people, but it was Baki-san who made Shinobu feel truly welcomed. The older man was more open to sharing things and he always answered her questions truthfully. Shinobu caught him rolling his eyes at his students' antics once or twice, but it was evident to her that he really cared for them. "Oi!" Tamari-sama snapped at her brothers, hands on her hips. "Stop squabbling and let's start cleaning. You don't want Baki-sensei to throw us out, do you?" "I'll help," Shinobu offered and quickly grabbed a mop. Kankuro followed the girls and jabbed a finger at Gaara. "You talk to sensei and invite him for dinner. And since it's your fault, you're paying." Gaara scowled. "How, exactly, is it my fault?" "You're the cage," his brother grinned. "You should be patient and benevolent. Besides, Baki won't snap at you." Gaara gave him one last glare before going to their sensei. While they talked, Shinobu and the older siblings tidied up the place. Unlike when Shinobu first came to Suna, the vibe between her and Gaara's siblings was surprisingly harmonious. They laughed and exchanged stories like old friends. Kankuro teased Shinobu more, but she didn't hesitate to give him the same treatment while Tamari supported her from the sidelines. The siblings ended up bickering though, and Shinobu played the peacemaker between them. When they were done, Gaara and Baki came out. They left after that and decided to eat dinner outside. Their time was filled with lively conversations and playful teasing. Shinobu was now comfortable to interject from time to time, and she even joined in their banter. That night was one of her best memories of her visit, and Shinobu fell asleep with a smile on her face. The next morning, Gaara escorted Shinobu to meet the Suna Council. They had asked him to not be present to form unbiased opinions about Shinobu, and he agreed. She smiled at the siblings who wished her good luck and at Gaara who stayed by the door to wait. Shinobu then took a deep breath and knocked. Mighty frowns and a cold silence were what welcomed Shinobu as soon as she entered the room. She would be intimidated if it weren't for Baki-san's encouraging nod. "Ohio," she bowed. "My name is Terumi Shinobu from Kirigakure. Terumi clan, EH. I didn't know that the current Mizukage still has living relatives. It is rare for them to venture outside their own village. How would we know anything?" Shinobu berated Gaara in her head, yet her face showed nothing about her thoughts. Even if these prickly elders mocked Shinobu as soon as she stepped in. "Welcome to Sunagakure, Terumi-san," a woman with kind eyes greeted Shinobu. "I hope you find our village charming, despite our traditional beliefs." "Hi," a soft-spoken old man said. "Unlike the land of water, we are behind in certain things." "Oh, it is no trouble," she replied with a polite smile. "Customs and traditions are a village's culture, after all. It is usually the elders who are having a hard time adjusting, and it is our duty as young ones to help them." The man with a turban frowned. "How responsible of you. Arigato. Let's get to the point, shall we?" The other woman in the group said. "Gaara-sama chose Terumi-san from the other candidates and I approve. Can we let her go now?" "How can you be so careless, Maki-san?" one elder snapped. "This position should be handled." "As if you're actually concerned," Baki scoffed. "You were the ones who recommended the Hoki clan, or have you forgotten that?" "Shut your mouth," one shouted. "This woman is an outsider. Please, let us not get angry," the only medic placated. "Gaara-sama is free to date whoever he wants." "I disagree," the elder with a turban said. He looked at Shinobu from head to toe and sneered. "This woman has average ninja skills, is from a side branch of a minor noble family, and not to mention that she dabbles in trade. Her only saving grace is her good looks. She is an embarrassment." Maki's painted face twisted in disgust. "Oi, you've gone too far, old man." The others stayed quiet but kept their heads down. Goza indeed went too far. The Mizukage is not a woman to be trifled with, and insulting someone from her family is never a good idea. I find it funny. Shinobu smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You imply that our village is outdated, yet it is you that have backward thinking. The Kage's bloodline is highly valued, and an unknown girl from a poor noble house is not suited to bear an heir. I am a shinobi, sir, and I fought in the Fourth Great War, she said, her voice calm and composed. Surely, my value is beyond doing house chores and giving birth. She is right, the soft-spoken old man said. We produced some of the best kunoichi that contributed greatly to the war, and believing that women should stay in the house is no longer acceptable. Would you really trust an outsider to roam around our precious village? If I'm not mistaken, sir, Gaara-sama suggested we work together with other nations and slowly break down the barriers that separated us for generations. Do you not agree with him, even if his idea garnered praise from the other leaders? Aya, Maki said with a scowl. It's just that everything Councilman Goza says is unpleasant to the ears. How dare you? Enough, the most serious looking of the elders said, and narrowed his eyes on Shinobu. We asked the Kage to marry because we value his bloodline. If you are not interested in giving him heirs, this conversation shouldn't go further. Excuse me. Shinobu's eyes widened in surprise. I came here to go out with Gaara-sama, not marry him on the spot. So, you are not serious then? I am, she replied with a slight frown. However, every relationship needs time and care to grow, so I can't promise anything for now. I understand, an elder nodded. However, Kage-sama is not getting any younger, and we all know how dangerous it is to live as a shinobi. The soft-spoken man also agreed. Hi, even Tamari-sama chose to settle down. The Terumi clan is a shinobi clan as well. I'm certain that your elders discuss marriage talks with you at some point, Terumi-san. They have. Shinobu nodded but kept her face neutral. The mild-mannered councilman smiled at her. You are polite, pretty, and demure, a perfect lady, I say. Fighting in the war and seeing your friends die is a bitter pill to swallow, and as your elder, I sympathize. The sudden compliment baffled Shinobu, but she thanked the man all the same. Your temperament suits Gaara-sama the best, in my opinion. Hi, a thin old man with glasses chimed in. I'm certain that Terumi-san's kind nature and gentle disposition will balance our hard-headed leader well. The man wearing a turban scoffed. There are a lot of girls who would throw themselves at the Kage's feet. We don't need to import AB. Baki's fingers brushed his sword. Finish that sentence and you will lose your tongue. Let's calm down, everyone. The pretty medical shinobi raised both of her hands with a forced smile. I think this has gone out of hand. You shouldn't be unreasonable about this, Maki interjected. Gaara-sama already gave you a say when he agreed to meet with the Hoki clan representative, but unfortunately for you, the match failed. So now, I believe that since it's love life, his opinion is the only one that counts here. Young ones should keep their mouths shut, the soft-spoken elder frowned in Maki's direction. Especially when they don't know all the details. Such disrespect. Gaara-sama is our leader and his every decision will affect us, Goza said. How can you say that we should let him do what he wants? Enough. Baki's voice was low and dangerous as he swept the room with a glare. Gaara-sama is indeed our leader, and as his counsel, it's our duty to follow him. He had proven himself again and again, even the late Kage and the whole world acknowledged his deeds. So tell me, what more do you want to see? Shinobu finally stood and glared at them. Baki-san is right. Gaara-sama is not a tool that you can use or a breeding stallion that you can partner with anyone you choose. It is clear to me that you don't actually care for him, and most of you are even bold enough to insult someone from an allied nation. I am patient due to my manners and the kindness that your people have shown, but your callous words and backward thinking will get you nowhere. You don't deserve my respect. Did you hear what she said? That politeness was just an act, I knew it. Ha! People from the land of water really are savages. Don't be rash, young lady. Mate, we can still talk about this. Hearing their outraged remarks, Shinobu bit her lips and gave them a flawless yet cold bow, then walked out and closed the door. Baki and the women glared at the still murmuring elders and followed her. Gaara was waiting with his siblings for Shinobu, but their greeting died on their tongues when they saw her fuming face. Shinobu's steps were strong and firm, her shoulders stiff, and her usually bright eyes had a fierce glint in them. Gaara knew that the council meeting would be irritating, but he didn't think they would make her this angry. Shinobu's eyes were cold as she asked with a flat tone. Gaara-sama, can we talk? Sure. Gaara wasn't sure why, but Shinobu's flat voice and cold gaze gave him the chills. It seemed to him that Shinobu was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, and that Ground Zero would be his office. He resisted the urge to gulp nervously and proceeded to escort her with his siblings in tow. Shinobu and Gaara walked to his office in silence. Gaara took his usual seat while Shinobu sat opposite him, arms crossed tightly and an irritated frown on her face. Temari and Kankuro were about to follow, but Baki stopped them and quietly closed the door. What are you doing, sensei? Kankuro asked, his voice low but anxious. He shot worried glances at his brother's office. Baki shook his head. This is between Shinobu-san and Gaara-sama. If they can't resolve this, they might not be compatible. Sensei is right. Temari pulled Kankuro away and gestured for Baki to follow. Let's give them some space. While they're talking, you can tell us what happened. As the others found a place to discuss the meeting, the tense silence in Gaara's office lingered. Gaara's face remained calm, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. After waiting for seconds that seemed like minutes, he finally spoke. I assume the meeting didn't go well. She glared at him, her voice dripping with sarcasm. What do you think? Gaara's forehead wrinkled. Shinobu-san, I thought the elders in my village were bad, but yours are the worst. She exclaimed, gritting her teeth and clenching her fists. Not all of them, my foot. Hearing these familiar words, Gaara's face soured in irritation. He said that to reassure her, but it did the opposite. After taking a few deep breaths, Shinobu unclenched her fists, her shoulders gradually softening. However, her face remained cold as she recounted her meeting with the Suna Council. So, nothing new, Gaara said nonchalantly. Shinobu's cheeks puffed up and her anger flared. Don't dismiss it like that. It was as if they see you as a weapon, he finished, his voice flat and unconcerned. A tool. I'm used to that, Shinobu-san. Just because you're used to it doesn't mean you should accept it. Weren't you the Kage who advocated for change the most? As she said this, Shinobu thought back to when she would accompany Mei-sama and watch the Kage's speech. Gaara was the youngest among them, yet his words resonated the most. To her, he had always represented change and hope. Seeing his unbothered posture now, Shinobu just couldn't fathom it. True, but their concerns were valid. Valid. Shinobu's voice rose sharply with one of her hands as if to smack Gaara, but she paused for a second and clenched it tight before bringing it down the table. You can't seriously be considering what they said. Only Baki-san and a few others even considered your feelings. I agree that they went too far with the marriage assumptions, but you shouldn't be so angry, Gaara replied, unperturbed. I have to think about the village, not just myself. Although Gaara expected a displeased Shinobu, her anger honestly confused him. He knew that Shinobu often dealt with the elders in her village and he assumed she had seen these dirty tactics before. Gaara was used to the council's uncaring words and rarely listened to them. He usually lets his brother and sister get angry on his behalf since he can't stop them. But Shinobu was different. Technically speaking, they just met and couldn't be considered close. Nothing life-threatening or equally outrageous happened between them. So, why does it look like steam is coming out of her ears right now? He had seen her annoyed and irritated, but not furious. Gaara felt uncomfortable, yet he couldn't explain it. All he knew was that Shinobu shouldn't be this way, yet he really didn't know how to pacify her. Shinobu's posture was straight and proper, yet Gaara could feel her anger radiating. Shinobu's fists were clenched tightly under crossed arms and her usually smiling face was replaced with a ferocious frown that was solely directed at him. Funnily enough, she truly looked like a kunoichi now. Shinobu pointed an angry finger at him, her gaze accusing. Then why did you bother with our dates if your feelings don't matter? Gaara blinked and leaned back as if Shinobu's words were needles piercing his skin. Shinobu pointed at his nose, her eyes spewing fire. If she weren't so angry, he would have given her a confused look. He didn't know how she got from point A to point B this time. I didn't say that, Gaara frowned but said that carefully. I meant that I consider my partner's value to the village first, then my personal feelings. He told her the truth. Although his father wasn't a good father, he was a good cage who thought the best for the village. Gaara agreed with him on one thing, Suna comes first. In every decision that he made ever since he became a cage, he had always adhered to this rule. That was why he led the Akatsuki away from the village, declaring war against Madara was a necessity and even Temari's marriage would not just make his sister happy but benefit them as well. Gaara would support his sister no matter what but he will take a boon if he can. Shinobu's eyes narrowed. Then why invite me here? She understood that Gaara wasn't adept at handling emotions and was trying his best but his indifference in this matter irked Shinobu. Change starts with oneself, yes, but Shinobu believed that you should also actively change the things around you to prevent the cycle from repeating. Sure, she could be patient with him and not blow up on this matter but everything has a limit. It's better that they talk about this now to avoid a more hurtful outcome. Gaara looked straight into her eyes and sincerely said. Because you have the qualities I'm looking for in a partner. Oh really? Shinobu's shoulders tensed again as she unfolded her arms, however, her expression still didn't look good. And what qualities are those? You're pretty, polite, and kind, Gaara listed her attributes on his fingers. We share interests like planting and drinking tea. And you're an exceptionally good cook. Gaara rubbed his arms, feeling the room grow colder. He looked up to see Shinobu's sneering face. How convenient for you, she bit out, her pretty face twisting in anger. I know, Gaara nodded seriously at her. It's thanks to your great character, Shinobu-san. Shinobu glared daggers at him, and she leaned forward, her voice sharp. Convenient. That's what you think this is? He looked taken aback. I meant that you fit well with what I envisioned for a partner. Isn't that a good thing? She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Good for you, maybe. But what about what I want? I'm not here to be a convenient choice for your village. Gaara stood as well, confusion and a hint of frustration etched on his face. Shinobu-san, I didn't mean to imply that you're just a convenient choice. I genuinely appreciate you. She shook her head, frustration bubbling over. You just don't get it, do you? This isn't about convenience or value to the village. It's about respect and genuine feelings. Shinobu's heart pinched at his baffled expression but she hardened herself. If he didn't fight for her now, what would happen in the future? She should make her stance clear as early as she can. She had discovered a lot of things about Gaara, some good and others not so much. Shinobu got to know his family and his village too. The more she saw of him, the faster her heart beats and if this keeps up, she might want to stay for good. Shinobu glanced at his confused face and averted her gaze. She should leave. Gaara raised a hand to stop her. I do respect you. And I do have genuine feelings. Then show it. Shinobu snapped, her eyes reflecting a rare vulnerability. Stop thinking like a cage for once and think like a person. Understand how I feel. I'm trying, but, Gaara sounded lost as he pleaded with her. No, Gaara. Trying isn't enough if you don't really listen, Shinobu interrupted, her voice softening slightly but still filled with disappointment. Maybe when you figure that out, we can talk. With that, she turned and walked towards the door, her steps brisk and purposeful. Gaara watched her go, a mix of confusion and helplessness on his face. Just when he thought everything was going well, this happened. Though the council can often be irritating, Gaara understood that they always thought about the village's best interest. Since Shinobu worked closely with the Mizukage, he expected her to understand their points even if she did not like them. As the door closed behind her, Gaara sank back into his chair, staring at the empty seat across from him. The room felt colder and emptier than before. He rubbed his temples, trying to piece together where it had all gone wrong. He clicked his tongue in annoyance and concluded that understanding emotions was truly more complex than any strategy or battle he had ever faced. Even dealing with Naruto back then didn't give him this trouble. Morning turned to afternoon, and Gaara hadn't moved from his spot. He attempted to do his paperwork, but every time he picked up his pen, Shinobu's disappointed face filled his mind, distracting him. The papers lay scattered on his desk in unusual disarray. Gaara sighed a few times, but eventually, he just gave up and stared blankly into space. If Kankuro saw him now, he would laugh at him. A knock at the door broke Gaara's reverie, and he heard a familiar voice. "Gaara, let's eat lunch together." Kankuro opened the door, but his smile froze when he saw his little brother's blank gaze. "What happened?" "Nothing," Gaara replied instantly, averting his gaze. "Right." Kankuro shook his head and occupied the chair in front of Gaara, leveling him with a probing stare. "You're many things, but a liar is not one of them. So, care to share?" "Shinobu-san got mad at me, and I don't know why," Gaara muttered, sounding petulant. Seeing his brother's confused look, Gaara recounted everything that had happened. Kankuro kept a straight face throughout but sighed when his little brother finished. He clicked his tongue but spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. "Shinobu-chan has a point," he began, noticing Gaara's light scowl. "You do too, but Gaara, she just cares about you. Hearing you talk about yourself like that probably hurt her feelings. But why? We haven't known each other for that long. I thought that of all the ladies I spent time with, Shinobu-san would handle politics the best." "Oi, don't be like that. Wait," Kankuro's eyes widened with a hint of panic. "Did you say that to her face?" Gaara nodded, while Kankuro slumped in his chair like a puppet that had lost its master. He glared at his younger brother, who looked increasingly baffled. "Haven't you learned from Tamari at all? Besides, who compares a woman to other women to their face?" Kankuro shook the table in annoyance. "I'm surprised she didn't slap you." Gaara tilted his head, his expression puzzled. "Surely it's not that serious. I just told her the truth." "See?" Kankuro pointed a finger at his younger brother. "Even I want to slap you for that attitude. Again, I don't understand. Gaara, people think and process emotions differently. Hearing you prioritize others before yourself hurts us because we care and don't want you to get hurt." "I know all of that, Kankuro," Gaara said, his voice tinged with frustration. "Hi, but knowing and showing are different things. Also, don't compare people. Everyone is unique and saying stuff carelessly can easily hurt feelings." "What do you mean?" "Just." Kankuro ran his fingers through his hair, trying to find the right words. "Pay a bit more attention to the feelings of the people around you." Gaara wrinkled his forehead in confusion. "If I pay attention to what everyone says, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am right now. We know that, hell, the whole world knows that. But there are multiple ways to express your opinions too." Kankuro fixed his brother with a warm stare, his eyes softening. "Tell or show Shinobu-chan her value. Not what she can offer to your village or your family, but to you. Why did you want her to come here?" "I did that, but she left instead," Gaara said, nearly pouting. "Well," Kankuro resisted the urge to laugh and stood to pull his brother with him, his grip firm but reassuring. "We just need to make sure that this time, you will get your point across perfectly." "How?" "Let's talk it over lunch, shall we?" "All right. You're paying." Gaara rolled his eyes at his brother's grinning face. "Fine." Shinobu went back to the house after she left Gaara's office in a huff. She originally wanted to walk around to calm down but decided against it. Getting lost would be embarrassing, and the last thing she wanted was to be a bother. Shinobu opened the door nervously, but she relaxed when she saw that no one was back yet. At least she has the place all to herself for the moment. Noticing that it was almost lunch hour, Shinobu rummaged around the kitchen for ingredients. Although this part of the house was rarely used, it was well stocked. She gathered everything she needed and started working. Shinobu's hands moved with precision as she chopped vegetables on the cutting board, the rhythmic thud of the knife punctuating her pent-up anger. Steam rose from the boiling pot of noodles on the stove, fogging up the kitchen windows. She poured the vegetables and spices in one by one, her movements deliberate, as if she could channel all her frustration into the cooking. Shinobu had always been like this. She rarely got angry, but when she did, it took a long time for her to cool down. When something really got under her skin, she needed to busy herself to let it all out, and cooking became her outlet. The sizzle of the pan and the aroma of the spices filled the kitchen, but they did little to soothe her. She stiffened when she heard footsteps. As she turned her head, Tamari strolled into the kitchen, her eyebrow raised in curiosity. She leaned casually against the doorframe, a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. I heard you and Gaara fought. Shinobu let out a cold snort and stirred the pot vigorously. HMPH. You have attitude, I like it. Shinobu stopped what she was doing to give Tamari an incredulous stare. Huh. Tamari walked over and leaned over the simmering dish, her smile becoming genuine as she inhaled the aroma. Smells good, she remarked. She grabbed a chair and, after settling herself, gestured for Shinobu to do the same. It was Kankuro who told me, she said as Shinobu sat across from her with a tense expression. And honestly, I get where you're coming from, Shinobu-chan. I'm even surprised that you didn't give him at least one slap. Sumimasen, Tamari-sama, Shinobu looked bewildered, her confusion gave way to embarrassment. Shinobu's feet tapped a nervous tune under the table and she avoided Tamari's gaze. She's not sure if she should agree to what the older kunoichi had said or not. Tamari-sama is known to be a fierce kunoichi and she has always stood by her brother's side. Shinobu bit her lip, are they testing her loyalty? Oh, come on, I know my brother. Gaara is a fine man, except in romantic entanglements, Tamari explained, shaking her head with a resigned expression. He knows the concepts but barely understands them and would likely choose the most logical solution. Shinobu relaxed when she realized she found a confidant and huffed in anger. He told me that he chose me because I have manners, can cook, and brew tea. Can you believe him? Tamari grimaced. Hi. That sounds like what he would say. Gaara-sama also told me that he's used to the way your elders treat him and he doesn't know why I'm angry, Shinobu continued ranting, slapping the table to vent her emotions. He had the nerve to look at me like I'm making something out of nothing. He's really irritating. I know. Wasn't he the one who spoke for change Tamari-sama? Shinobu's disappointment and confusion mirrored her expression. Why is he letting them walk all over him like that? The village is important but he is too. Shinobu-chan, Tamari placed a warm hand on her shoulder, her moist eyes met Shinobu's shocked gaze before looking away, and with a slightly choked voice, she said. Hi. Gaara is important and we know that. Deep down, I think he knows it too. But, old habits are hard to break and we have been trying to for years. But, we don't scold him too much though, she said, a hint of fondness and regret in her voice. Because he's still our younger brother and we can't help but spoil him a little. Shinobu blinked and with a pout said. That's unfair, Tamari-sama, how can he learn like this? Gaara-sama is not a child. Taking this slow is well and good but sometimes you just have to let them experience it on their own. Tamari laughed at her indignant face. Isn't that why you're here? Well, Shinobu's face flushed and her anger finally deflated like a balloon. I know what I'm getting into, but Gaara-sama's honesty can be irritating at times. That's why I just smack him, you know. Tamari said, trying to light up the mood and giving Shinobu's shoulder a comforting squeeze before letting go. Shinobu giggled. I don't think violence is necessary, but I appreciate the suggestion, Tamari-sama. I gave you one option. Tamari shrugged, her face becoming serious. Shinobu-chan, despite my words and the fact that we often bicker, I love my siblings. Kankuro presents an easygoing attitude, but he's smart. Gaara is strong and has capable allies. I'm assured that the two of them will take care of each other, but as their elder sister, I still worry. Shinobu nodded with a soft smile. That's natural, Tamari-sama. When I found out that Gaara traveled around the 5 nations just to go out on dates, I was furious. Tamari sounded annoyed, but she continued. What if something happened to him and we weren't there to help? On the other hand, having the initiative to look for a partner is already a huge improvement for him. Tamari paused and fixed Shinobu with a warm gaze. What I'm saying, Shinobu-chan, is that you're the first girl he brought home, and I can see that he treats you differently. It may not be love yet, and Gaara might be as dense as a rock, but please don't give up on my little brother. I can be patient, Tamari-sama, and I understand where you're coming from, but it takes two to maintain a relationship, Shinobu said, clasping her hands on her lap. He at least has to work with me here. We know, Tamari replied, her eyes twinkling. We'll get Gaara into shape, don't worry. Just forgive him this time, alright? HMPH, Shinobu crossed her arms over her chest and lifted her chin. He can ask me that himself. Tamari grinned. Oh, he will. Just you wait. But, Shinobu looked down nervously, her fingers twisting in her lap. I don't know how to face Gaara-sama after my outburst. Before Tamari could answer, growling sounds were heard. Both glanced at each other's stomachs and laughed. The tension in the room quickly dissolved. We'll talk after we eat, okay? Hi. Shinobu and Tamari ate the noodles with relish. The older Kunoichi gave her advice from time to time and Shinobu nodded with a serious face. When Shinobu would ask questions, Tamari would brush them off with a mysterious air. Shinobu didn't think too much of it. After cleaning up the house, the ladies talked throughout the afternoon and Tamari accompanied Shinobu shopping. They chatted as they walked, bonding like real sisters would. Neither noticed the time passing by. Evening settled over the desert, the stars twinkling like newly polished gems against the velvet sky, while the moon watched over them with a serene glow. The air was cool and gentle, a welcome relief from the day's relentless heat. Shinobu stood nervously near the cage tower. She kept tugging at her light kimono, anxiously glancing at the huge balcony at the top. It was Gaara's office and Shinobu was still gathering her courage to talk to him. She recalled Tamari's words and heaved a deep breath to calm herself. Shinobu folded her hands in front to hide her unease and started walking. She had done her best tonight and even wore a new outfit. Dressed to impress, as they say. Shinobu's kimono was a delicate shade of lavender, adorned with intricate floral patterns that seemed to shimmer under the moonlight. Her obi was a soft cream color, with a cute bow around her waist. Shinobu's skirt fluttered softly in the night breeze as she walked. Shinobu's long blue hair was styled elegantly, with a few loose strands framing her face, adding to her ladylike charm. Her expressive eyes were like the flickering stars overhead. But before she could go far, the sound of approaching footsteps broke her thoughts. Shinobu turned to see Gaara walking towards her, his face expressionless. She couldn't read his thoughts and his unexpected appearance caused her heart to pound in her chest. Gaara wore his usual robes but somehow, Shinobu thought he looked different. The robe was a deep crimson, trimmed with black, the high collar and intricate designs represented his status. His back seems to be straighter and his steps resolute. Both of them stopped in their tracks and their eyes met. Gaara's eyes flickered with uncertainty, yet this time, Shinobu didn't look away. It's now or never, she thought to herself. She opened her mouth to speak but Gaara without a word, held out a single delicate desert rose. The flower was a vibrant pink, its fragrant petals shining under the moonlight. Shinobu blinked, her cheeks flushing red. F for me. Hi. Arigato. Shinobu gave him a soft smile, took the flower, and sniffed it happily. It wasn't like him to give her a gift, but she appreciated his effort, nonetheless. This is a good start. Gaara shifted his feet, he kept glancing around but refused to take a step forward. Seeing the rare sight, Shinobu was pleasantly surprised. This time, she decided to let Gaara start the conversation. I'm glad you like it, Shinobu-san, Gaara said proudly, his gaze fixing on the flower. It is a precious variety of desert rose and only Tamari grows them in the village. Most of the flowers are red, that is the only pink bloom in years. Shinobu gasped, her eyes slightly widening in alarm. You got her permission to give this to me, right? Gaara's gaze slid to the side. She doesn't mind. Shinobu's hand unconsciously tightened around the rose as she angrily pointed at him with her finger. You. Gaara gently caught her accusing hand and finally looked her in the eyes. His sea-foam gaze was bright and intense and focused on her. Shinobu's words got stuck on her tongue, their entwined fingers were inexplicably warm. That's not the important thing right now, is it? Hi, Shinobu meekly replied. About what happened earlier, he began, sounding hesitant and a bit guilty. Gomen Shinobu-san, I really didn't mean to hurt you. I know Gaara-sama, she sighed. I was too hasty, I shouldn't have walked off. Well, he shrugged. I've seen worse. Oi, Shinobu couldn't help but giggle at his nonchalant reaction. Anyway, do you know now why I got angry? Hi, she raised an eyebrow. Tell me then. He sighed but maintained eye contact. You were right, I should not let others dictate my affairs. I thought their concerns were valid because I consider this village as a part of me. Whatever I do or whoever I become, its fate will be tied to me and therefore, I chose the best of both worlds and that's you Shinobu-san. No one wants to be the second choice, Gaara-sama, Shinobu said with a scowl. But you're not, he said, fixing her with a gentle gaze. You're my only choice. Nani? Shinobu's high-pitched voice was heard and she nearly crushed the flower he gave. This time, it was Gaara's turn to avert his gaze. His free hand tugging at his collar, he said. It's true that I dated others after you but I didn't even consider bringing them back here. Whenever I'm with a lady, I would always think of you. It's either Shinobu-san would like this or I will tell this to Shinobu-san when we meet. Oh. Her fingers trembled and Gaara squeezed them in an attempt at comfort. You've captivated me the first time we met. I couldn't forget your warm smile back then and the hopeful look in your eyes as you offered me food. That's why I came to find you. Gaara's voice was unusually tender. But I want you to know that I invited you here because I like you and I want to know more about you Shinobu-chan. Not as a colleague, not as a friend, but someone special. Shinobu froze but her ears burned at his words. They were straight to the point and it touched her heart. I have admired you for so long and honestly, I didn't think I would get to personally meet you, she said earnestly. But now that I do Gaara-sama, I won't let go that easily. I'm fascinated by you and I want to know more so, I plan to stay by your side. Oh. Shinobu's eyes narrowed. What do you mean oh? I mean, that's good to know. He responded in a fluster, the tip of his ears reddening. There are a lot of great things here in Suna and I would be happy to take you to all of them. Shinobu bit her lip to stop herself from laughing. Like right now, Gaara tilted his head back and gestured towards the blanket of shimmering stars above. The stars are unusually bright tonight. Shinobu followed his gaze and couldn't help but gasp in awe, the undisguised wonder softening her tone. You're right, they are wonderful. I'd love to paint it someday. Gaara stared at her, this gentle yet stubborn woman who caught his attention at a glance. Didn't she know that she was more beautiful than any constellation in his eyes? A kunoichi with the demeanor of a lady. She is kind, honest, and polite, yet not without a temper. Shinobu seemed to understand him but was also willing to tell him things that he needed to hear. She always knew what to say and Gaara couldn't help but listen. Would you like a better view, Shinobu-chan? Gaara asked, mirth twinkling in his eyes. Of course. She nodded absently. Hold on tight. Wait, what? Gaara smiled, took the flustered Shinobu by the waist, and promptly formed a sand cloud beneath their feet that shot out into the night sky. Gaara looked at a screaming Shinobu who was desperately clutching at his robes and he laughed. He slowed down and told her about the stars as she caught her breath. Gaara pointed at the clusters one by one, explaining where they came from as well as telling Shinobu about the myths surrounding Suna's skies. Shinobu lightly clung to his arm, giggling or frowning at the right moments, her every expression etched into his mind. It was the first time that he took Shinobu on a tour among the twinkling lights, but Gaara hoped that it wouldn't be the last. From a lonely child who only loved himself, to a young man who aspired to atone and create precious connections with others until he became the well-loved and respected leader of his village, Gaara had been content. That changed when he met this unusual girl who offered him food. The next thing that Gaara knew, it had been the start of his love story. Thank you to the people who read my story. I hope you enjoyed this creation of mine. Thanks for watching.